Yo, 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 yo. What's up, what's up, what's up? Give up the rack. And hello to my fellow revolutionaries. You know who you are. And I hope you all had a lovely weekend, can I just say? Lap Jeff, brothers, how are you? Cheese Swiss in the house. Hello, hello. It's good to have you. And yeah, I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. I hope you were able to escape the clutches of capital and just do whatever the hell it is that you do. No way, David's in the house as well. I'm at work, but I'm doing my annual CBT continuing modules so I can listen for a while. It's good to know that I get the same rank and status of having to do training modules at work. Like, talk about dry. So at least you can enjoy the stream in the background. Good luck with modules. Oh my god. Yeah. Such a yeah, you have to keep me awake. I'll do my best. Do my best. But like I'm fighting up this is an uphill battle here. Because I know how yeah, dry modules and training can be. So good luck to you. Good luck to you. So yes, today, my fellow revolutionaries, we're going to be speaking about this mystical AI bubble. What's going on there? You've probably been well down the same rabbit holes that I've been down when it comes to AI and AI territory in terms of all of the hype that has been going on around this incredible technology that is going to basically change life on Earth, the human race as we know it. You know, rah, 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 insert generic tech hype rhetoric here. But, you know, for the working people of the world, for us general plebs who don't own the means of production, you know, the real kind of scare, hype, and drama around this has obviously been the fact that it's going to replace human workers. Now, what I have noticed very recently, to be honest, and I like to keep my finger on the pulse with this one, if anyone understands the reference there. But yeah, I like to keep my finger on the pulse with this topic because I think it, well, hello there, Mr. E. Hello, Avalava. Hope you're well. Hope you had a good weekend. I had a very busy weekend. Um, yes, so yeah, I'm across the AI conversation as much as I can be, and I've noticed this shift, this vibe shift in AI world. Wow, are you talking about the current big thing that totally isn't speculative fictional capital? I know, right? Talk about, yeah, fictional capital at its finest. And so I've noticed there's a big vibe shift in the industry, and people are really starting to speak now about how it's been talked up too much, and it is well said, Avalava, in the sense that it is actually a speculative bubble. So what's happened with AI, and you all know my feelings about these people. I hate the term venture capitalists. They are just people that invest in stuff, but they like to call themselves VCs because it sounds honorable, I guess. But VCs have done this. Venture capitalists have done this. They did it, they've done it before, and they add it again in the tech sector. They have invested in a technology that is undercooked. AI is not there yet. AI has much potential, but it'd be like all of these people, all these venture capitalists, kind of being out there and investing heaps of money in the idea of steam power before somebody had really invented the steam engine. But there was some pretty sick prototypes out there, and everyone was frothing that this was going to be the next big thing. But the steam engine itself hadn't gone off the ground yet, and like they were like, let alone even laying down railway tracks and having the infrastructure there to hold uh, the the advent of the Industrial Revolution on the back of the Steve engine. Like they have invested all of this money, these venture capitalists. They've hyped this thing up massively to get support, get extra support from it, from things like Wall Street and other fictional capital environments, and they've swindled everyone for massive amounts of investment. And now it would seem that people are starting to look for a return on their investment. And that's the thing with venture capital. It can take a long time to make real money on something. But like they do it anyway because they've got heaps of cash and they don't mind kind of hitting a winner every now and again because it's going to be the next big thing. But this has taken the tech industry by storm, I think. Voltateur, good to see you. Welcome to the stream. And yeah, so there is just, not only have they hyped up the narrative around AI, they've also hyped up its potential impact on the economy, dragging investors in from other sectors, not venture capitalists, other sectors from the real economy, to be like, hey, oh, you don't want to be behind this technology, do you? Do you? Do you? You don't want to miss out, do you? Do you? Do you? And this has caused this like flurry of investment and people taking this stuff on, and just to realize that it's really not ready yet to be rolled out across the board. And if anything, the technology is still in its testing stages, and these people that are investing in it and like pulling it into the real economy, they're the guinea pigs. They're the people that they're like, oh, try this, see if this works, have this technology, and then they try and use it for data analytics, or they try to use it to improve their business practices, or they try to use it for customer service. And like the technology hasn't really been developed for them yet, and they're trying to develop it as they go, and they've paid for this product, but like they're kind of developing it on the fly. And there's a lot of speculation about not only the potentiality of it, but whether now it actually has any real function at this stage at all for the broader economy, apart from all of these, sick sci-fi experiments that they're doing right now with AI. There's all these mad patents that they have out there, all these big tech giants, like from literally reading your mind to being like a second skin for you, and like all of these fantastic things, like, putting data centers in space. They've got all these incredible inventions going on, but does it have real tangible effect on the actual economy? And that's where there is an actual divide right now between, I think, AI and reality, as it were. What are we talking about? Capitalist bubble, funding bursting, or something outside of the estimated dollar value? Squeablicious, how you going? It's good to have you. Yeah, we're talking about this, and I've noticed that, or the thought bubble, i.e. AI, don't really do much. Well, like, it is a bit of a thought bubble too, isn't it? And that's the thing. Like, I've traditionally talked more about the hype generally and what it means for the economy, just in terms of hyping stuff up and not being able to actually replace workers exactly, and like where it's going to impact the economy mostly once it does get rolled out, because people are pretty invested in this stuff. But what we're talking about today and now is the vibe, like I said, that is really coming off from the industry at the moment, which has the investment in terms of the dollars put into this because of venture capitalists. Is that about to pop? Has the overhang from the weight of the bubble itself? Is it going to just pop now, and there's going to be a large retraction? And now this is the problem, right? Ever since 2008, blockchain thought bubble burst, yeah, but the dollars didn't burst. That's an interesting idea, isn't it? Yeah, because everyone was frothing on blockchain, but there's still money in it. Yes, but like, and that's the thing. Like, the technology is taking its time to evolve in a more natural, organic phase, as opposed to just being complete hype train stuff. No longer hearing, let's build a new blah, blah, but with blockchain shoved in. Yeah. 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 And it's just kind of evolving in the background, doing its own thing organically. Still in the thought bubble of AI, frothing on stick it in everything. That's so good. That's pretty much the analysis right here. Is yes, just let's just stick in AI into everything. Just stick it in everything. See what happens. That's pretty much it, actually. Yeah. So anyway, let's go back and look at what has happened in financial history and in our lifetimes, as opposed to like all the other stuff, the craziness that has happened throughout the history of capitalism. But like, let's use 2008 as an example. What had happened after the early 2000s, after there was a series of financial crashes in the late 80s, late 90s, then the early 2000s, was the financial sector is the problem. The financial sector is the problem. It's a large problem with the modern economy generally, but it's a problem because it's trying to compensate for something else, that our capitalist mode of production is relatively stagnant in this day and age. For the majority of the 20th century after the World War II, the technology had reached a certain point in terms of what it was producing for consumption, and so profit kind of was just being monopolized into a fewer and fewer hands, and they were getting way more productive in terms of their technology, but then they were using labor less, so squeezing out less surplus value. And the only way to really keep the economy going was to turn to the financial sector. And you could argue that's probably why you had the rise of neoliberalism, because hand in hand with neoliberalism went the strengthening of the financial sector and large-scale speculation. And what culminated in 2008 was just the next phase of what section of financialization was going to keep the economy going, because there's a lot of capital, but there's not a lot of investment in anything productive. But because we have now fiat currency, as opposed to having currency that's backed by, I don't know, gold or something physical or tangible, you can just print money. And because there's a lot of money in circulation, the money has to go somewhere. And so the financial market is a great way of just shifting money around. And like a lot of big companies just, shift the money around by just buying back their own stock. And investing like private equity, they just get together in a consortium, buy out a company, shell it basically, or do something with it, change it slightly, and then sell it for a profit. And they just throw their money into these non-value creating ventures, but it's all in financial wonderland where no one can really understand what's going on, but it looks like someone's generating value, and then it gets an inflated price, and then everyone profits on it. And so like the financial system seems to have been a way for capitalism to absolve itself from the problem that it's no longer productive. Really the only thing that it really produces really well, because it's constantly turning over, which is a core requirement in a Marxian analysis of capital, is the military-industrial complex. Because, if you build stuff, either you build stuff and in 10 or 20 years it's out of date because technology has moved fast in the military sphere and you need more up-to-date military gear anyway, or you're literally blowing shit up and destroying stuff because it's being used in warfare. So that thing chugs away. It's the only really productive sector in a modern capitalist sense. And so you have the financial sector, and it just goes from phase to phase of different things that are bubbles, and that seems to be where the value is being created. So 2008, it was the housing market. There was a housing bubble in America, and it popped when they started playing ridiculous games with all these complex derivatives and games of carving up people's mortgages and like throwing them into packages with different levels of risk and bundling them together and selling them to other people all around the world. And like people were like, oh yeah, I'll invest in that. Here's a few $100 million and I'll invest in this person's risk and that bundled risk asset over there, et cetera, et cetera. And then when that all, like when it all had to be cashed in at some point and people started getting nervous about it, then the whole thing came crashing down. It brought the world economy with it. And so after that, there needed to be something else to kind of speculate on, I guess you would say. And so I think that in the current environment, the AI dream has been a sector which has been the speculative next big thing for the economy, and it's come with a lot of hype to go with it and mythology, unlike potentially other levels of hype. Like everyone's always kind of had houses, or like houses in a marketable sense have been around for a couple of 100 years now. People have been investing in housing and mortgages and all that type of stuff for a while. So it's a solid idea, and everybody needs a house. But AI is kind of different. It's kind of built up really, like I said, it's like if the steam engine was being traded on before it actually became something functional in the economy and actually became a product first that could be rolled out everywhere. And so there's a lot of kind of speculation on top of speculation when it comes to AI. And again, that's like, this is what happens when you let venture capitalists control the economy. They kind of get to make these decisions because they're investing in technology that they have absolutely no idea how it's going to be used. And like, 1 in 1,000 might actually make something of itself. 1 in 1,000,000 might make something of itself. They literally call this stuff, when like they pick something, they call it a unicorn, because a unicorn is a mythical creature that doesn't actually exist. And if you find one, it's ta-da, like you pulled a rabbit out of the hat kind of thing, like actually much harder than that. And so you've got venture capitalists now that are causing the speculation, as opposed to chopping up mortgages on real assets like houses or something. Like at least they're real, the houses. The mortgages might not be, but the houses are. But the AI doesn't seem to have any real depth to it, apart from how it's already being applied in the economy, which is, it's already been in the financial system for a long time, since the 80s. They've been using algorithms to predict market trends. They use algorithms in traffic lights and coordinating infrastructure all around the world already. It's there, it's being used, but it's not with the hype of ChatGPT 5 or Grok or something like that. Jag, do you not think the AI bubble is more akin to the dot-com bubble rather than the housing market? I feel like the housing bubble is happening again now with the bundling of crypto, etc. Yes, actually. And that's where I was actually going to go, because I was going to show you this dude here. If you've ever come across this guy, I actually really like him. He's from the UK, I guess, given his accent. He's a gentleman by the name of Richard Murphy. And so he lived through the dot-com bubble. And so he believes, and he talks about his experience in the dot-com bubble. And I want to watch it again because I can't remember everything that he said. But yeah, he lived through the dot-com bubble. But like the dot-com bubble at least was built on some I think, some reality, because like the computers were there and people were starting to pick up the internet like more broadly, and like you could see where the internet was kind of going. But like AI really is kind of a lot of speculative hype. Like they really haven't figured out how to largely integrate AI with the real economy. But like, yes, you're right. There was still a lot of speculation on how the internet was actually going to be a thing for the economy. They weren't actually sure what it was going to do. But like, you had people already, like big corporations with massive online presence. They had websites, and people were trading online and stuff like that to a certain extent in the early 2000s. So yes, I find it more akin, and actually, that's a really good actual analogy or example correlation between the housing bubble. Is kind of like what's going on with crypto, because crypto is mental, and like everyone's in on crypto, creating their own little schemes and like betting on them wildly, and yeah, coupling up, like bundling things up in crazy schemes and packages, and people coming in starting their own ones, and yeah, and people are just going nuts on it. Back in the glorious Silk Road days. Yeah, wow. Yeah, it was definitely the wild, wild west. I put my fictitious house deed into a fictitious NFT so I can speculate on its potential in 100 years. And now I'm a millionaire. And now I'm broke. And it's gone. So yeah, look, long and the short of it is that it would seem that the vibe is changing, right? Oh, look, it's not changing. They're still going to ram this one home for everything it's worth. They've got too much invested in this. But there is people starting to call it a bubble now, which is interesting change in the rhetoric. Only up until like a few months ago, it was really all just non-stop, you know, AGI's around the corner, hold on to your butts, human race, because you're not going to recognize yourself when you look in the mirror anymore. And all of a sudden, it's kind of like, uh-oh, what have we done? Have we not learnt our lessons? Have we not? And so we're going to dive down that rabbit hole. But I want to go with this dude, who is Richard Murphy, a professor of accounting at Sheffield University Management School. And as opposed to kind of the drama that you get from the general liberal consensus about the AI bubble, but like then we'll look at someone else talking. We'll look at Sam Altman talking about it. Like, what's his go? What is his investment? I want to get to the bottom of that. Why is Sam Altman comfortable now saying that there's an AI bubble? Why is the guy from Anthropic, what's his name, Dario? Why are they comfortable saying that? KFC, is that you? Like, why are they comfortable saying they've been hyping this up so much, and now they're all like, oh, there may be a little bit of a bubble going on with AI. Like, well, what's in it for them? Are they happy now? Have they got what they wanted in terms of investment, and now they're just going to pull it all back and get everyone to, I don't know, ease off a little bit so they can maintain a stranglehold on the industry because like too many people are investing on it, diversifying the industry too much and taking away their ability to control everything, and so they want to put some fear in people about it now. I don't trust your Sam Altmans of the world very much. So if they start talking about it, then can you trust them? Can you trust them? I don't know. Maybe not. Um, maybe not an AI bubble, but rather an equities bubble or a non-conventional asset bubble. Just another way of saying they printed too much money, so everything is costly. Yeah, well, but like this is the weird thing about the current. I don't know. Well, it's not even current. It's been around for long enough, but our style of economy now, it's, you can literally just print money. So, there's a lot of money slushing around. And so there's lots of avenue for these Googles of the world who get all of this money off the government because the government prints it, doesn't know what to do with it. They give it to banks, and the banks don't want to give it to regular people because they can't really pay it back. So they give it to Googles of the world, and these massive corporations are like, you do something with it, and here's a negative interest rate for you. And then they do stuff like this, and then they start to pull out after they go in pretty deep, and then they start pulling out, and they're like, we might have overinflated this situation, and they'll start to slush that money around somewhere else. Need a way to burn some of it on things like the AI. Yes, I agree. And the banks still give up an FK tone on service fees. Richard, about to serve us up something fresh. Yes, the Colonel. Yes, the Colonel himself, and give us a fuck ton of service fees. Right? Yes, yes, they do. I know, right? That's how they assure their profits from like extracting actual money from us, real people. That's how it is. Need the older vanity approach of build a momentum. At least get a tourist attraction. David, we actually don't need full on AGI. The LLMs we have already are enough to change the world. I work in the hospital and I see more and more AI features in our software every month. Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. Like, I actually saw someone as well talking about small language models the other day. So getting like specific models designed, or AI designed to do specific tasks as opposed to like a massive, ginormous large language model that requires, so many terabytes of information and like huge data centers to support it, in order to service massive populations and do everything. But no, you can just have these small language models or small models out there that like specifically provide for a particular industry or a particular task even, and do that really well, and that will revolutionize the industry. And that's why I think you have people starting to speak about a bubble as well, because they've realized that like they don't actually need, I think they're realizing as the technology develops, and especially in competition with China, they're realizing that there is many ways to skin a cat, and you don't have to have $100 billion minimum investment in order to make this technology work. You can do this for, a fraction of that in terms of its cost, and still pull off some pretty impressive software. And so people are going to start discovering that, and that's why I think there is discussion on the bubble. But you're right. Let us just listen to the Colonel over here and see what he has to say, because you might find it very interesting. Then we can speculate a little bit more after that. So I'll try not to interrupt him too much. But yeah, I really like this dude. He's taught me a lot about modern monetary theory and economics generally, because as much as I love to be, let him speak, as much as I love to be a Marxist about everything and put on a Marxian hat when analyzing the economy, like you got to understand the bourgeois economic system and how they analyze things and how they do things. So I think he's a good way of understanding bourgeois economics. Yep, focused, expert. LLMs are the way to go. That's where the money is, and that's where the revolutionizing of the real economy is going to happen, in the like specified algorithms and software that actually, actually help humans do a task and do it better, as opposed to like these massive conglomerations, and these entities that they do it all and service entire markets and all that sort of stuff. So I hope this brings down some of these big giants. If this bubble bursts, as they are predicting it, I hope it brings down some of these big ones to make room for some little fish that can really get into the cracks of the economy and like make this stuff work for everyone, as opposed to it just all being controlled by like Jeff Bezos or something like that. A small fries in the USA is a large elsewhere in the world. Same to say a small LLM. Yeah, fair enough. That's pretty funny, actually. Nice analogy there. All right, let's listen to the Colonel.
We are living in an AI stock bubble. I've been saying this for a while. I admit I've made videos on the subject before. Again, I confess to that. But now I'm not alone in saying this. The New York Times is running articles saying that they fear we are living in an era before a crash, and so is the Financial Times.
Dun, dun, dun. The Financial Times is saying. See, that's what I'm saying. There's a vibe shift going on out there. We'll have to find that in Financial Times articles.
The world is aligning with me. I'm no longer trying to make it do so. It has happened. And my fear is that we are, in effect, going to face the dot-com crash that hit the world in the beginning of 2000.
There you go, Jag.
All over again. And I lived through that and knew what it was all about, partly because I was involved in dot-com companies in the 1990s. And this, therefore, as far as I'm concerned, is something that is about lived experience. The S&P 500 crashed then, and so did the FTSE 100. And now things are much worse in underlying terms than they were in 2000, because the tech giants are now much more dominant in terms of stock market valuation, particularly in the USA, than they were back then. So the risk is that we could have another crash on the scale of 2000 or worse. In December 1999, just before the millennium, there was a stock market peak in the UK. when the FTSE 100 hit 6,930 points, an unprecedented level before then, after which it plunged by nearly 50% by 2003. It took 5 years after that to recover, before 2008 dragged it down again. If we look at the States, the S&P 500 peaked at 1,553 points in March 2000, and by October 2002 had lost near enough 50% of its value. Again, the recovery took years, until 2008, when, of course, in effect, it all happened once more. The lesson is this: markets can be irrational, and the fact is that right now, markets are deeply...
Markets can be irrational. Did you hear that? What an outrageous claim that was. Can you see? Isn't it amazing to graph this stuff? Like Marx really talked about this in terms of like the real economy and how basically he saw a crisis happening within the capitalistic mode of production every 10 years. Now he based his assessment of the crises of capitalism coming out from a turnover in technology. So because he was looking at industrial capitalists who were actually producing real value, their what he calls fixed capital stock needed to be replaced on a decade by decade basis, like generally. So fixed capital is the stuff that doesn't move. It's not in the circulation process. So fixed capital is your buildings, your heavy machinery in an industrial sense, the stuff that churns out the products but is stuck in place. Now, fixed capital has a certain lifespan. It depreciates over time, and it needs to kind of move on in a certain point, and that you have these depression cycles potentially every 10 years. He was seeing it in his time when he was analyzing capitalism, generally, obviously. And he speculated on the fact that it was happening in cycles of fixed capital depreciation. So when the technology itself or the big machinery need to be fully replaced, as opposed to just being repaired and kept on life support, or a revolutionary change would happen in the productive forces and people would have to invest heaps of capital again up front to buy new technology and new factories and new industrial equipment and new fixed capital in terms of transporting that stuff around, so logistics, all that type of stuff. And so you'd have a depression and a slip every now and again, and then as that becomes more and more stable, and like they start producing again, then the economy goes back up, and then it kind of crashes down. But that was based on real economics. What we're talking about here now is financial bubbles. Richard Wolff has mentioned many times that capitalism tends to crash on average every 5 to 7 years. Well, have a look at that. It was crashing. It hit a trough in 2002. It hit a peak in 2000, and then by 2008, so what's that? That's a 5 to 7 year-ish kind of cycle. It's like it's going up, and then like bang, and like that's your period there, and it seems to be coming up again. So it's very interesting that like there's cycles like this, and it seems to be, but this is all financial stuff now. It's the financial sector that triggers a fall in the real economy, as opposed to problems in the real economy causing a general depression out there. That's a massive change, I think, in the way that the capitalist machine works or the mode of production works. And it's interesting from the sense that, because people have various ways of describing what type of capitalism we're living through at the moment, but like people do call the stage we're at the moment financial capital, of the financialized capitalism, or whatever you want to call it. And so it does seem to be the financial sector, and like how the money slushes around now in a fiat currency system, and who's throwing what where. And then, like, as people kind of pick their capital up, their monetary capital up, and put it somewhere else, then that leaves a gaping hole in the economy, and everyone frantically moves somewhere else, and we all go through a slump together, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. COVID helped delay the latest crash. That's interesting because you have to speculate on what kind of happened. And yeah, like the globe kind of shut down for a few years, ostensibly. Anyway, Jerry Poppins intended. Ha! You're talking about the COVID response there to Jag? It's a good one. I like that, actually. Intended delay on the crash there. Clever. That's how you really control the world economy, is by artificially creating events and seeing how they fly and seeing what the global response is to it. The market knows this stuff, but optimizing for individuals means the market can't avoid. The market knows this stuff. Oh, hey, someone's talking about the invisible hand there. This moved private individual debt to public debt. Wow. M2 money supply is also increasing, which I think is artificially propping up the market to current record highs. And yet the money supply is a big problem, and it's ramped up in terms of how much money states are just flooding into the economy through the central banking system as a result of like just trying to keep the world afloat after what happened in 2008. And that's why someone like Yanis Varoufakis has a theory, if nothing else, that capitalism has actually changed or even left the realm of capitalism into something else, which he calls techno-feudalism, because we don't even, companies and corporations don't even really rely on profits exactly or surplus value. It's just states that print money and they get to play games on the stock market with it. So the velocity of money is low at the moment, so need more market. Saying that, a lot of money is supply is parked, not being spent. Can we call it digitech capitalism? That has a little ring to it, a nice little ring to it. It does, actually. Digitech capitalism, yeah. So let's get away with Poketech. What's a superior franchise? Digitech capitalism. We can do that if you want. We can have a little vote. If we get consensus, we'll stop calling it techno-feudalism or surveillance capitalism. We'll start calling it digitech capitalism. Just for you, Jerry. Just for you, Jerry Poppins.
And once more, the lesson is this. Markets can be irrational. And the fact is that right now, markets are deeply irrational. After 2000, following the dot-com crash, investor and pension plan pain was severe and prolonged. And it's a fact that crashes hurt whole economies and not just speculators. Now, I want to stress that the links aren't absolute, and in some ways they are less defined than they were earlier this century because there are so many fewer links between companies and their pension fund these days. But the truth is that unless governments act, the crisis of confidence that a stock market crash represents does drag down the economy as a whole. And so what I'm talking about is significant, because if markets fall, we're going to be in deep trouble. Just look at this chart. What it shows is the price to book ratio of the value of the S&P 500 as a whole at present, and compares that with the entire trajectory of this century. Right now, the price to book ratio, which is an indication of the difference between the price that people are willing to pay for shares and the underlying asset values associated with those shares, is 5.3. In other words, people are paying 5.3 times the underlying asset value of the shares that they are buying. And
isn't that mental? Like, I love this style of bourgeois economic analysis. It's very, very interesting. I think what he's saying, and again, I am no financier here, but the value of the assets that back the shares that people are buying is somewhere in the order of a magnitude of 5. It's a factor of 5. People pay 5 times the amount for the shares that they are purchasing than the actual value of the assets held by said company. And lo and behold, see that little dip there? The other side of that was happening. The last time that this happened was during the dot-com bubble. So it goes with your point, I think, before, Jag, that there is more similarity between the dot-com crash and this AI bubble in terms of their speculation style, because they are not surrounded by physical assets like houses. They're kind of, there's speculations on software. How do you value software anyway? Hey, it's not even in the real world, man. Where's my research assistant here? Let's just get some scope on this for people that are not across it, and for myself too. Hello, we are just watching a video right now and trying to understand the dot-com crash of the early 2000s. Could you please give us a brief explanation of this event and what happened? Rational versus irrational investor / market is useful to find. Price to book is great example of how much money was printed versus how much actual jobs and companies were created. Earnings ratio is similar. You value software by cost to build, ITP. So CapEx spent to build is your estimated value. Like value of a tractor is the purchase price. Thank you. We have a financial expert, so if anyone's wondering, or if you want some lessons, Squeeb is doing courses. Of course, the dot-com crash was a result of speculative investment bubble that burst in the early 2000s. Here's a brief explanation of what happened. The boom, mid to late 90s. From the mid 90s to the early 2000s, there was an immense enthusiasm and investment in new internet-based companies, often called dot-coms. Fueled by innovation and deregulation, investors poured massive amounts of money into these startups. It's funny that you talk about deregulation, because we read the original, I don't know, was it like a white paper or something in a stream months ago that Bill Clinton put out in the late 90s, and there was still a web link to it, and it's like this old like page that you would have seen from the 90s, and it was just basically Bill Clinton sign off saying, you know, we believe there's a lot of value potentially in this thing called the internet, and we need to do whatever we can to, you know, help the free market deliver internet services, because we believe this is going to be the future. And like, they're making these kind of weird, you know, political kind of grandiose statements trying to predict what's going to happen in the future. And the language is incredible, because they're sitting there in the late 90s trying to figure out what to do with the economy to help, I guess, allow there to be enough freedom for these companies, these dot-com companies, to just do their thing. And yeah, it was just this old website page, and it's still active. CC my incest joke, never mind. Well, you got CC'd on an incest joke, seriously? Oh, Voltaire, have you been CC'd as well? They pressure us into their investment retirement schemes to get money from the government, get money from the government for us, make profit on our money. They keep a lot of that profit and then still charge us a fee for it. Yeah, I know, the scam of retirements, hey, and super and all that sort of stuff. Retirement funds, late of life, and pension funds. Yeah, it's interesting. They play with all of our collected value on the stock market, give us nothing, take fees from us. Yeah, what a valuable way of making money that is for massive corporations who like to play on the stock market. Very interesting. All right, sorry, let's go back. So, fueled by innovation and deregulation, investors poured massive amounts of money into these startups. Stock prices skyrocketed. And the tech-heavy NASDAQ exchange jumped from around 1,000 in 1995 to about 5,000 in 2000. This period, from roughly 1998 to 2000, is considered the peak of the bubble. The bust. So, The bubble began to burst in 2000, leading to a significant and rapid drop in the technology stock value. Many of these .com companies had failed to turn a profit and eventually went out of business. Between September 1999 and July 2000, insiders at these companies sold off approximately $43 billion of their stock, which was double the rate of the previous 2 years. The .com crash had a major impact on the global economy. It triggered a decline in the stock market, led to massive job losses, and contributed to a recession that extended beyond the tech industry. While it was a significant economic downturn, the event also provided critical lessons for modern investors and ultimately helped shape the future of the tech market. Obviously, they didn't learn much, did they? Or maybe they have learned and they know how to insulate themselves from it. But here it is. It's VCs. It's all this VC culture. I'm telling you, they're awful people. They speculate on stuff. They pump heaps of money that they have generally from this weird economic system that we have now, the modern monetary system that we have at the moment. And they have all of this extra cash. They just want to put it in stuff and just hope that literally one of the thousands of things these guys invest in actually works. And then they can do whatever they want. They make bank and they walk away and they crash the economy in the meantime. They don't give a shit at all about this stuff. They don't care at all about tanking the economy. And this is exactly what we're seeing at the moment. We have these speculative companies, so ideas that are being traded in a speculative environment anyway. It's speculation. It's inception shit to the max. And this is potentially what we're seeing at the moment. Now, I think that the important lesson here is, the very, very important lesson here is that the internet and the .com hype actually lived up to its expectation, but not in the incredibly short period of like 5 years or whatever that they were hoping and predicting in the late 90s. It wasn't just it wasn't a technology that was just going to take off and like make everybody super rich overnight. It's been progressively doing that for decades now. And I think that's the lesson we might have to learn with AI, is that this is going to take its time to filter through the economy. Let's be honest. Long vid taught me the basics of why the economic system crashes on a cycle, .com, property, etc. Thank you very much. Have a look in the stream chat. If you're watching this for the first time, you're wondering where I am reading cryptic comments from, we have a Discord, and here is the invitation for that, and you can go over, and if you get censored, like, you can go over and drop it over there, and so I can at least read it out. So go and have a look there. There's the invite if you're wondering. I'm going back to sleep. Papa Jerry is on the night shift and needs his rest to root the land of its resources. Have fun. Thank you, Jerry Poppins. And good luck doing the night shift for the capitalist class. You've earned your rest. Good luck to you, sir. So yeah, a bit of context for you there when it comes to .com. But same type of thing. There's a lot of hype about potentially what could happen on like the internet, on the World Wide Web. What was going to happen? Like, the economy was going to shift to being in the physical world to the digital realm, and people were going fucking nuts. People were loving this, and they had money. People had money, and it was these tech guys too that had a lot of money behind it. Like, people were investing heavily in digital technology at that point in time. And like, this was coming in after, like, neoliberalism was in full flight. There was a lot of financial speculation happening, and people wanted to invest in something because there's no real value creation in the economy anymore. And so they got to invest in something. And so people throw money. It's a fucking casino. And it's typical herd mentality. Humans get in, that no one wants to be left behind, and so people jump in and they jump out. And that seems to be what's going on with AI. But I'll let the Colonel keep talking.
The last time we saw a ratio like that was in 2000, when it was 5.1. And look at what has happened in between. It fell heavily. The indication, as a consequence, that we are seeing a bubble is incredibly strong. AI is in effect the new .com in earnings terms. People are claiming that AI is going to deliver massive profits, and those are being valued so that stock market valuations compared to underlying asset values are enormous. The fact is, investor psychology is driving valuations, and fundamentals are not. That is the classic driving force of a bubble. And this time it's even worse than it was in 2000, because back then, the companies that time it is the valuations, stock market valuations compared to underlying asset values are enormous. The fact is, investor psychology is driving valuations, and fundamentals are not. That is the classic driving force of a bubble.
Hey, investor psychology, hey, herd mentality. People getting a little bit too excited about something is causing a problem or causes a bubble, as opposed to fundamentals, like making good and sound investments based on researching what a company is doing, understanding the market and shifts and trends in the market. But no, investor psychology. Hey, oh my God, everyone's investing in this. Oh my God, Bitcoin. Oh my God, quickly, take my money. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. And that's what causes bubbles. Isn't that interesting? In a world in casino, that's what causes bubbles. Based. Yeah, I know, right? Tell me about it. Hey, the Colonel, hey, Voltaire, you go check him out. Check him out. Damn. What's GME? And there's a little rocket ship there. Yeah, worth a read. Oh, sorry, Jag, you got something else in here. Love me some RD. His book, The Changing World Order, was super insightful as well. GameStop. Oh yeah, the GameStop phenomenon. But that was funny, like, right? And that investor psychology was awesome as well. Like, they were literally playing games with the stock market, right? Just because of like nostalgia and just because they, I don't know, being rebellious, I guess. Why not? Sweet. We'll give it a watch while plodding around the house later in a stream already right now. Is AMD a bubble by definition? Is GME a bubble? Or just a moon trip? Interesting. Are meme coins a bubble? Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think that is, more of a pyramid scheme, or like, I think people like to refer to those things as a scam, I think. But like, time will tell. I guess, AI, depending on who's telling the story, is a bit of a scam too, isn't it?
And this time it's even worse than it was in 2000, because back then, the companies that were overvalued were diversified in their nature, and now they're very concentrated. Now we're looking at about 7 companies dominating the US stock markets in particular and dragging the rest of the world behind them in terms of market valuations. Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, Amazon, Alphabet, which owns Google, Meta, which owns Facebook, and Tesla are around 1/3 of the value of the S&P 500 between them. The top 10 companies in the USA represent 38% of the value of the S&P 500, and Nvidia by itself represents 8.1%, although it has seen a fall in its value in the few days before we recorded this video. A stumble in any one of these can
This was recorded on the 21st, so like 3 days ago.
move the
4
entire
days ago.
index. If they all move together, and that is what I am suggesting might happen, and we're heading for a crash scenario. And in 2000, people said that couldn't happen because the internet was going to deliver untold riches. Today, we're told the market can't crash because AI is going to deliver untold and almost immediate riches as a consequence of the hundreds of billions that these companies are throwing at it. And the fact is that the internet really did transform business completely and utterly. We all know that. Our lives are totally different from what they were 25 years ago as a consequence of that invention. But it didn't happen overnight. Nor did it
There it
entirely
is.
eliminate old style business either. And that's going to be true of AI as well, I suspect. Of course, it is going to change things. Let's not pretend otherwise. That would be absurd. It obviously is new technology which is going to change the way that we work. But to presume that massive flows of profit will arise as a consequence for the companies who are investing now is quite absurd. Let's put that in context. If that confidence which is underpinning current stock market valuations disappears because it becomes apparent that there isn't going to be the stream of profits that people...
Isn't it scary, like when you frame the modern economy like that? Like basically all he's saying is, okay, they have been valued at a certain rate. And if people start to figure out that it's not, or it's potentially not worth all of the hype, then the confidence goes and everyone starts to pull out. Like, isn't it mental how we've structured the entire world economy around literally people having confidence in the stuff that they've put money into now? Like, that's really all it comes down to. What he's saying is, yes, fine, the money's in there, and like they've been a driving force for the global economy, which is what we have been talking about from a financial perspective. Like, there's nothing else really to invest your money in, so let's just put your money behind this. And it just takes a little bit of a sap of confidence to unravel the whole fucking thing, because it's built on nothing. It's built on nothing. It's absolutely mental to think about. It's just, at the end of the day, the whole system is just built on whether a group of people have confidence, and that group's confidence can basically pull us all into complete and utter disarray. It's a very scary system. There are always a few survivors that consolidate their power after these bubbles pop. Yes, the laws of coercive competition. When people go down, there's always people that have insulated themselves just because they own real assets and real power, and they have good diversification of their various assets, I guess you would say. And they go in and buy everything up. It's fire sale prices, and then they get stronger for the next round. The laws of coercive competition, and the big fish get bigger and bigger.
Are currently expecting, indices could fall. They fell by 40 to 50% in the era from 2000 to 2002. In other words, values just about halved in many cases. It was that dramatic. The FTSE fell to a little over 3,000 from a peak of nearly 7,000. Pension funds, savers, and jobs were all exposed as a consequence, and people lost jobs as a result. Let's be clear about it. And this time, the global fallout as a consequence of the concentrated tech valuations could be even worse. And the result could be something much more.
So I'm interested in why he keeps saying that. We are listening to someone speak about a comparison between the .com crash and the current AI bubble as it is being described. And he keeps referring to the fact that the AI bubble is concentrated in the hands of fewer and larger companies, where the .com crash was across more companies involved in highly speculative investment and overvaluation. Can you explain why it may be worse to have an AI bubble where there is less companies involved that will be affected by an AI bubble crash? Look how big a few banks got after '08. Yes, right? 100%. And they were backed. Like classic neoliberal rhetoric. Oh, they're too big to fucking fail. Well, like, why are they too big to fail? Let them fail, man. Let them go down. They've already crashed the economy anyway. Nationalize the pricks. And yeah, look how big they got as a result of that. And they started merging too. Bastards. Housing market crash didn't suddenly reform, then remove the need for housing. .com crash didn't suddenly mean we got rid of the internet. Just means values were misaligned. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I don't think that. Yeah, the internet didn't disappear, and AI is not going to disappear either. I cannot answer your question. However, using my own knowledge, I can explain the reasoning behind the argument that an AI bubble concentrated in a fewer larger companies should be worse than a more diffuse .com bubble. The core reason it could be considered worse is due to systemic risk. Here's a breakdown. Too big to fail effect. The .com crash involved thousands of smaller, highly speculative companies. When they failed, it was painful for their investors and employees, but most were not deeply integrated into the core of the economy. In contrast, the current AI boom is led by some of the largest and most influential corporations in the world, e.g. Nvidia, Microsoft, Google, Amazon. A significant crash affecting these giants would have a much broader and more severe impact because the entire global economy is heavily reliant on their services. Oh my God. See, this is that spiral nature as well of like the you don't even have to call it financial. Let's just say the crashes of capitalism. It doesn't have to just be financial, but this is the spiral nature of it. It's supposed to get, if you're truly Marxist in your assessment of capitalism, yeah, it's supposed to get worse and worse and worse as I guess monopoly control takes over the capitalistic style of economy, and you have larger companies that control more stuff, and if they crash harder. So yeah, a significant crash affecting these giants would have a much broader and more severe impact on the entire global economy that is heavily reliant on their services, products, and financial stability. A bubble spread across many companies like a .com era means the risk is also spread out. The failure of one company doesn't necessarily bring down others. In a concentrated bubble, the fate of the entire sector, and by extension a large part of the stock market, is tied to the performance of just a handful of companies. If one or two of these key players falter, the shockwave is much larger. These few large tech companies make up a significant portion of major stock market indices like the S&P 500. A sharp decline in their value would not just be a tech crash, it would pull the entire market down with it. And what did he say, this guy before, the colonel, that, it was like 10 companies, including, and like what, 8 of them or something like that being tech companies, control like a third of the value on the stock market. Is that right? On the S&P 500, something like that. So yeah, I guess if they go down, it drags the entire stock market with it. It would pull the entire market down with it, affecting retirement funds, pensions, as you were talking about, Voltatel, the wealth of vast numbers of people who may or may not be directly invested in AI. So it's not just the .comers like last time. It's the entire economy that's going to feel the burn of this one. Sorry. The large companies at the center of the AI bubble are also critical infrastructure providers. Yes, Nvidia and Microsoft, like the entire world's business economy, especially from a Western perspective, relies on Microsoft. The entire world. That would crash everyone's businesses. But they're too big to fail. Here it is. Here's the neoliberal language coming in. You watch. Too big to fail. They'll get a fucking bailout, and then they'll just use it while the stock market is down. They'll just use the bailout money to buy back all of their shares after everyone else is selling them so rapidly. Fucking mental. And then somehow the stock market will come back to life, and people will be like, look, everyone's buying stocks again. It's okay. It's just the companies buying back their own stuff. AI crash won't remove AI slop videos on YouTube. Why not? What we need to worry about is what they're saying now, where the money came from. Depression was bad because the people directly borrowed money to invest in markets, so the companies didn't collapse. But rather, the people had no money to spend, so then companies had no income. Think Nvidia going down won't be that bad. Will make retirement fund accounts go down, but won't affect people's NWO spending. Volatile. Our previous right-wing PM sold out a bunch of public assets and favored the bank so much that he became chairman of ANZ Bank New Zealand. Yeah, I know, right? Walking straight into the public service to head a bank. They love doing that. The leaders of state institutions, don't they? Google is core. How will we know stuff without search? How the do we know now? What the hell do we do now? I know. Use ChatGPT. Ask it a question. Tesla, how will we survive without Cybertrucks to deliver our goods? Boy, how the fuck are we going to survive without satellites? Hey, I'd like to see what happens when satellite technology or providers of satellite technology go down. That'll be scary. But you're right. Cybertrucks, man. Fuck, that'll crash the economy right there. Right there. You're on fire today, Squeeb, by the way. In summary, while the dot-com crash was widespread, its impacts were somewhat contained within the speculative tech sector. I think that's a really important point from this one. But like everybody's investing in Google. Everyone's investing in Tesla and Microsoft. Everyone's got a stake in that. And like it just shows you how the internet and the Internet of Things and digital technologies have actually taken over since the early 2000s. The entire world economy is now integrated into the digital realm. And so they've taken up a third of the share of the market value on the stock market. They control a third. So the real economy is integrated by at least a third entirely within digital realm, the digital realm somehow. And yeah, those big players going down would, yes, send shockwaves. Not Tesla. Tesla, how will you survive without Cybertrucks? Deliver goods. Not Tesla. That's SpaceX. Google makes money. It's simple. And they have no competition. Google makes money. Yeah, I guess not on that scale. I've ridden in a Waymo. They are legit. Who's Waymo owned by? Is that owned by Google, is it? Or Alphabet? Interesting. Yeah, it's owned by Google. Okay. Amazon, AWS really is the cherry people want, not the shop front. And it again has limited to no competition. Well, not from Western companies anyway, but the Chinese are coming. Chinese are coming for all that stuff. Coming for Google. Coming for SpaceX too. Eh? Chinese are coming. And they've got a plan. None of this ad hoc, is there confidence in this sector kind of stuff. Free market. They've got a 5-year plan. So the value can go through the roof. Hey, Google owns Waymo. Interesting.
More significant. In 2000 to 2003, the UK government and others spent a lot to prevent market meltdowns. Gordon Brown, to his credit, rose to the challenge, and most people in the UK would not have realised we suffered the consequences of a stock market meltdown in this country in the period in question, 2000 to 2003, because he compensated for what was going on by increasing government spending to make sure we did not suffer. But suppose that in this new world we now live in, where we have politicians like Rachel Reeves saying we must balance the books and nothing else matters, well, this crash could have a massive social impact. If the government decides not to help this time, and the neoliberal dogma, which is that zombies must fail, and not just companies, but also governments potentially, then we are going to see a disaster as a consequence of the crash that I believe is coming our way as stock markets begin to fail. AI's optimism is simply unjustified. I've been here before. In 1999, warned my co-directors in a company that if we did not sell out within months, we would not see the same valuation ever offered for the company ever again. It turned out I was right. When the company was eventually sold, long after I left, the figure that we got for it was about 20% of what we were offered in 1999, which my colleagues turned down. It's that sort of
20%.
feeling that I get now.
Shit.
We are facing that sort of potential revaluation of AI without action by governments now to actually put in place the steps that are necessary to ensure we have a soft landing when the AI bubble bursts, as burst it will. We are going to be in real trouble. Governments have to have a contingency plan for this. And that contingency plan is about government spending to keep economies going when those who have brought it to its knees by overvaluing stock markets will have long taken their losses and fled the scene, leaving governments to pick up the pieces. So,
That wouldn't happen, would it? That's an outrageous claim that these guys will just fuck off and then governments will have to pick up the pieces of the broken economy. That's an outrageous claim. How could he say that? That would never happen. Never happen. We must spend more to counter the coming crash. ICE must be fully funded. Government just needs to spend money. It doesn't have to be smart, but better if it is, I suppose. Yeah, it would be nice. If, like I said, they planned for something. Maybe they planned a little bit. Price to earnings ratio. When price to earnings is 50 plus, just sell. You're not going to be alive to even see the value from earnings. So great financial advice coming through on the chat today. I hope everyone's paying attention.
what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that AI is overvalued? Do you think that we could face a stock market crisis? Do you think that the government is ready for it? Do you think that we might all suffer as a consequence? These are the sort of questions to which we want answers. There's a poll down below.
Well, there's a poll down below. Let us know. I don't know where it is. Somewhere around here. But yeah, go check this guy out. I think he's very tangible in terms of his economic analysis. He's a professor, so he knows how to talk to us plebs about these issues, us laymen, and yeah, I highly recommend it if you're interested in this type of stuff. Now, what was the other thing I wanted to do? I wanted to have a look at fucking Sam Altman talking about this, because I haven't seen this yet. There's just, unfortunately, clips of Sam Altman talking about this. But why not? Let's see what is coming from the actual tech bros themselves on this one. Again, the more I find out about Altman, the more I despise this guy. Very
Capital
nefarious
expenditure on
operator, if you ask me. Have they got an actual interview with him? Or are they just talking about? I want to see. Oh yeah, here it is. Oh, he's with Theo Vaughn.
Altman had this interesting exchange about data centers.
Starts to make our planet look like a software board, like a.
It does. When you see it from the air, I was really struck by that. I was like, this looks like the motherboard of a computer.
Yeah, it looks like the motherboard of a computer. You start to see like how the planets in like a lot of these like sci-fi movies, a lot of them have that R2-D2 look on the outside of them because they've been
covered in data centers.
Yeah, which is kind of wild. Do you know where we're going and you're not telling us? Do you know what's happening?
I don't.
You promise, dude.
I don't know. I mean, I have all my guesses. Like, I do guess that a lot of the world gets covered in data centers over time.
Do you really?
But I don't know, because maybe put them in space. Like maybe we build a big Dyson sphere on the solar system and say, hey, it actually makes no sense to put these on Earth.
You know they're doing that, right? They're actually doing that. Like there's, I think Amazon's got a patent for putting data centers into space right now. Theo Von is such a tool. Oh, really? He comes across as being kind of, I don't know, happy-go-lucky, like kind of thing. And so he's endearing because he's out of whack with reality, and he seems like, I don't know, he's got potentially brain damage or he's smoked too much or something like that. So he comes across as potentially endearing. But you don't like him, Jacked? I would like to know more. Give me a reason. Have you seen him do something? Because, yeah, people love him. Just another Rogan bozo. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough, I guess. He's difficult to watch. I love Waymo. I don't mind paying 30% more than Uber. I feel safer being driven around by AI and don't feel guilty about not tipping. Yes. It's an interesting concept, the whole tipping thing. I think us non-Americans have a very different relationship when it comes to tipping. And like I used to get it wrong too. I felt like I was breaking some social norms a lot of the time when I didn't tip when I was in the States. And it was just because I guess I didn't understand like the rules, the standards around that. I wasn't indoctrinated into the system properly. We have public trains near places we want to go. And it respects the bike lane. There you go. So wait, these things are fully operational. They're not just being tested anymore. Like you can just, like Waymo's just out there. And where is this? I thought that Waymo was restricted to kind of, what? San Francisco? It's only on the West Coast, maybe? Maybe it's further out than San Fran now. It's everywhere. And it respects the bike lane. Interesting. This is not the type of banter I expected from you two in the chat here. I'm very interested by this, actually. It's in a few cities now. Interesting. Oh, God, the future is now. Hey? Very interesting. All right. I want to say, like, I don't think he's actually going to speak about the AI bubble at all, actually. This is not where we're going with this one, but whatever. Let's continue.
Yeah.
Helena, does that make? I suppose you could do the because obviously you want your data center. You know, if you're using AI, you want there to be not that much latency between your phone and the data center. So I don't know how sort of it being this big donut around the Earth, also kind of a big donut around the Earth, that might also block the sun. I don't know. I don't really like this. Even more on data centers in the near future. And on a recent podcast with Theo Von, Altman had this interesting exchange about data centers. The market.
Yes, this is. Nah, they're not going to talk to Sam Altman at all about this. Boo. What a misleading title, eh? Sam Altman admits AI is a bubble. I'd like to see that. I'm not going to watch the whole thing. Cannot be bothered. All right, let's have a look at some other YouTube vibe content about why the AI bubble is a thing and how it's going to destroy the planet Earth. Shall we? Now, this one I'm pretty sure is something that Hassan
in 2021, and by 2023
reacted to recently. So, how AI became the new .com bubble. So let's get down with this one. Let's see if there's any gold in it. This is from Economy Media. I don't know if anyone's come across them before. 70k subs. 200,000 views on this one. It's a popular topic, this one is. All right, let's have a look.
In 2025, 64% of all venture capital in the U.S. has been allocated to artificial intelligence startups.
Venture capital investment
Fucking venture capitalists, man. 64%. Goddamn venture capital.
in artificial intelligence hit $50 billion in the second quarter, accounting for nearly half of all VC funding.
Companies like OpenAI were valued at $300 billion without even being profitable or publicly traded.
OpenAI at $300 billion is that
Isn't that mental? Isn't that mental? And like, it's not even profitable. It's not even profitable. Like, you don't have to be an economist or even an anti-capitalist to be like, isn't that a problem? I don't know much about this stuff, but like, it's not actually profitable. Why is it worth that much money? Who's saying it's worth that much money?
Too expensive? Is it a deal?
In 2024 alone, Google, Amazon, and Meta spent over $400 billion on AI infrastructure or startups.
A $20 billion pledge from Amazon to build artificial intelligence innovation campuses.
However, 70% of these funded AI startups still do not generate real revenue.
70%? Is that what they just said?
70% of these funded AI startups
It's a big problem, man. If you're looking to have a return straight away, if you're really a venture capitalist, just let it ride, baby. Stop complaining about it, causing a confidence crisis, which will then lead to an actual global financial crisis.
still do not generate real revenue. This has raised alarms among some experts who claim that the AI boom could be turning into a bubble, like the dot-com bubble of the early 2000s.
Hype cycles come and go. The metaverse, Web3, crypto. What about the mother of all tech cycles, the dot-com bubble and burst? So right now, are we in the middle of another one with the generative AI and ChatGPT?
So, how AI became the new dot-com bubble. The dot-com bubble was an economic phenomenon that took place between the mid-1990s and the early 2000s. During that period, the mass adoption of the internet
that?
sparked a surge
That wasn't a young Andreessen, was it?
in the early 2000s.
I wonder if it is. Hey, Egghead. Whoever calls him that. Who's that loves to call him Egghead? I reckon that's him.
During that period, the mass adoption of the internet sparked a surge of investment in nascent web-based companies, just as is happening now with the AI boom. The Nasdaq Composite rose nearly 400% from 1995 to March 2000, only to crash 78% by October 2002, essentially wiping out all the gains from that period. Venture capitalists and speculators invested without considering real business models, and many companies went bankrupt after burning through their funding without generating profits. Today, the world is experiencing a new technological boom, the explosion of AI.
Over the past decade, we've become surrounded by AI systems that perceive our worlds, that support our decisions, and that mimic our ability to create.
Since the public launch of ChatGPT in late 2022, investor attention has surged. Global funding for AI startups rose from $18 billion in 2014 to $119 billion in 2021. And by 2023, generative AI accounted for nearly 30% of that total investment in the United States. In the first half of 2025, investments in AI represented 64.1% of the total value of venture capital transactions in the US. This has triggered warnings and comparisons to the dot-com bubble. The enthusiasm for artificial intelligence has sparked an unprecedented wave of investment. For example, OpenAI was valued at $300 billion in April 2025, without even being publicly traded. Anthropic, its direct competitor, is seeking to raise an additional $5 billion, despite its products not yet generating revenue.
Amazon is reportedly considering deepening its ties with the AI startup Anthropic through a new multi-billion-dollar investment.
In the first quarter of 2025, the four largest venture capital deals in the U.S. were AI-related, totaling $26.6 billion. This capital concentration is reminiscent of the dot-com bubble frenzy, when funds flowed to companies with no finished products solely because of the allure of emerging technology. Big tech companies have responded to this euphoria.
Like, doesn't that just scream to you that these people have too much money, right? Like, whoever's investing, whoever's on the stock market and playing these games, these venture capitalists, all the people that support them, they just have too much money. They don't know what else to fucking do with it. That's a sign of the system itself, as opposed to there being a problem potentially with AI. Because even with the dot-com bubble, let's call it, it wasn't like the internet disappeared as a result of that. There was obviously still potential for it. It was just the fact that these people had way more money than sense. Like, way more extra resources slushing around that they could redirect at companies that had nothing to show for it. They had absolutely no product development, or even had their company at a stage in which it could be demonstrated that it was a legitimate business. That is more of an indictment on the fact that because of the hyper-financialization of the capitalist system, now you have way too much money in the hands of a select interest group who has absolutely no interest in investing in productive activity, like real world economic production, and just want to back the next winner. And it's really like a casino then. Like, it's like playing the horses. Like, you can know as much as you can know about a horse, but at the end of the day, if they just have a bad run, then they have a bad run. Or if they fall and break their leg, then, you know, tough. You backed the wrong horse. That's just gambling. It's not the intention of the stock market, which was to help, you know, fund real endeavor, real adventures. At one point, that's what the stock market was about. People were going to go on some type of adventure across the world to, you know, get spices or something like that and bring it back to the motherland for trading. And now it's just literally, well, there's a lot of hype at the moment when it comes to AI technologies. Just invest in someone. And again, if you're a big enough company, you can invest in 1,000 startups. And if one of them turns into a unicorn, so it's $1 billion enterprise, then you're cheering all the way back home. All the way back home. Always the value we generate through physical labor is siphoned and used for luxury. Yes, siphoned off and used to play games, speculative games, things that just have no real value. They're not tangible at all. It's incredible.
With an arms race to acquire talent and infrastructure. AI engineer salaries have skyrocketed, with compensation packages reaching $100 million, especially in Silicon Valley.
So OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, he says that Meta is trying to poach his top engineers, offering what he called $100 million sign-on bonuses.
Google, Microsoft, and Meta are projecting a combined spending of $405 billion on AI infrastructure by 2026. This figure doubles previous estimates and represents a jump of over 13% compared to the previous year. Alphabet, for example, announced it will allocate more than $85 billion annually to its artificial intelligence projects. This has had a ripple effect on financial markets. Currently, the tech sector accounts for 34% of the S&P 500 index, an even higher proportion than during the peak of the dot-com bubble in 2000. But despite the enthusiasm, most generative AI products have yet to demonstrate a truly large-scale revolutionary impact. While they may be useful tools, their transformative potential is still up for debate.
We're not saying here that AI isn't leading to be productive. We're just saying that AI tools, yes, they're here and they're being used. The payoff may be more uneven than the hype suggests.
Many users report that these models provide inaccurate, shallow, or outright incorrect responses. In practice, generative AI has proven more effective in supporting repetitive tasks than in disrupting entire processes. This has led to a disconnect between the futuristic promises made by companies, such as replacing 80% of administrative jobs, and tangible results. Moreover, much of the value of these startups is based on expectations of future revenue that have yet to materialize. Revenue projections are, in many cases, speculative. According to data from CB Insights, more than 70% of AI startups that received funding in 2023 and 2024 still do not generate operating profits. Added to this is the fact that talent and early-stage company acquisitions by large corporations have increased by 40% in 2025. In other words, returns on investment remain uncertain, raising doubts about the sustainability of this speculative wave. In addition, the productivity gains from AI are being questioned.
Tech giants like Microsoft and Google are outsourcing more and more coding to AI in a productivity push, but some new research shows the tools might not be as helpful as some expect.
Another troubling symptom is the disconnect between stock prices and economic fundamentals. NVIDIA, one of the largest AI chip suppliers, lost nearly 17% of its market value in a single day after the release of an open-source model promising similar results. Although NVIDIA has greatly benefited from the AI boom, this event showed how volatile current valuations are, where future expectations can collapse with an unexpected competitive breakthrough. On top of that, there is a risk of financial contagion. The excitement over AI has pushed other speculative assets upward, including cryptocurrencies, echoing the asset correlation phenomenon during the...
Interesting. The asset correlation phenomenon. So there's a link between AI speculation and your cryptocurrencies. Is one driving the other? That's an interesting call. What did she say was the asset?
Upward, including cryptocurrencies, echoing the asset correlation phenomenon.
Asset correlation phenomenon. Let's ask about that. Can you explain what the asset correlation phenomenon is in relation to the .com crash and potentially the link between AI speculation and speculation in cryptocurrencies?
Assets upward, including cryptocurrencies, echoing the asset correlation phenomenon during the dot-com bubble. Back then, the Nasdaq crash dragged down nearly 1,500 small tech companies and had a systemic impact on global markets.
Down one.
Interesting. Would you like to know more? I would, for God's sakes. Asset correlation describes how prices on different assets move in relation to one another. During the dot-com bubble, a high positive correlation was observed among technology and internet-related stocks. So like tech associated with the internet, I guess. Makes sense, right? During the bubble, the market was fueled by speculative investing, overconfidence, and a fear of missing out. FOMO. Investors often treated internet stocks as a single group, so positive news for one company could lift the entire sector. Their prices began to move together. During the crash, the high correlation became very clear when the bubble burst. When investor sentiment turned negative, the sell-off was not isolated to a few failing companies. Instead, it spread across the entire sector. By the end of 2001, massive dot-com stocks had failed, and even the share price of established blue chip technology companies like Cisco, Intel, and Oracle had lost over 80% of their value. That's that Larry Ellison dude from Oracle, isn't it? So the blue chip technology companies went down as well. Had lost 80%. That's mental. This demonstrates that the assets were highly correlated as they all declined together in a systemic fashion. Very interesting. Because like what I was gonna say before was when we were listening to this documentary, is that okay, let's just say the AI part crashes out and the AI bubble bursts because there's just way too much speculation and there's no real return on AI investment. But a lot of these companies like Amazon has its whole enterprise to fall back on. Microsoft has its whole enterprise to fall back on. Tesla has multiple arms to fall back on. It's not just Grok or something of that nature. So what's the issue there? They all have solid, real-world, diversified investments, assets, and actual enterprise. But if there is an actual correlation there that if AI is being overvalued, then the general tech associated with it then becomes overvalued in a certain way. It really could lead to a big crash for those companies. I just thought they were not too big to fail from an ideological perspective, but from a real perspective, they are massive companies and they have other services. But if they're all tied together in simply an umbrella, which is the word tech, then yeah, I guess it could bring down their other services too, their other enterprise elements. The context suggests that a similar pattern of correlation may be emerging with current artificial intelligence boom. Some financial experts point to the Magnificent Seven technology stocks and see parallels between the current AI boom and the dot-com era. These few large companies that are the forefront of AI development, their stock prices often move in tandem based on general news and sentiment about artificial intelligence. This suggests a high correlation where investors are bundling them together as a single AI-driven investment class. The concern is that that if there were a negative turn in AI sentiment, again, it's just about negative sentiments and feelings. It's just the entire economy could crash because people's feelings might change. Like, I understand that this is a phenomenon, but isn't it mental when you say it out loud? It's so mental when you say it out loud that people's feelings could crash the entire world economy. And because of this high correlation between tech generally now and AI, because they're trying to stick AI into every part of the tech sector. Just stick some AI into it. Because of this high correlation, they're doing even more damage. If you don't have AI in there, then you're failing. So let's put AI in there, and then it's just going to tear everything else down with it. Oh man, it's crazy. Could lead, so this sentiment, or a negative turn in sentiment, the concern is that if there was a negative turn in AI sentiment, this high correlation could lead to rapid sector-wide sell-off, similar to what happened in the dot-com crash. But it's going to be all the little ones that die. It's going to be all the little ones that die. This imaginary value is killing us. It is. It's scary. It's fucking crazy. But yeah, it'll be all the little ones, and the ones that are too big to fail are too big to fail. And they'll get bailed out, and they'll just buy back all of their shares at fire sale prices. Linked to cryptocurrency speculation. Oh, here's the interesting part. This is one for, who brought this up before? I think it was Jag. The provided context does not contain specific information about asset correlation within the cryptocurrency market. However, based on general financial knowledge, the cryptocurrency market is another area well known for extremely high asset correlation. The prices of thousands of different cryptocurrencies, altcoins, are often tightly correlated with the price of Bitcoin. When Bitcoin's price rises or falls significantly, the broader crypto market tends to follow, often with greater volatility. This is driven by similar factors seen in other bubbles, share market sentiment, speculative trading. But that wasn't the question, though. That wasn't the question, though. The question was, is there an asset correlation phenomenon between the increased speculation in the potential of AI dragging up the increased activity and speculation in cryptocurrencies? Are those two factors correlated somehow? Can you please speculate on that? Let's see what it comes back with.
0.7% here, a loss of 37 points or so. Apple shares are just getting hammered this morning.
We're down by between 3 and 4.5% generally across these markets. Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate.
Today, a negative event in the AI ecosystem could trigger a similar domino effect, given that many institutional portfolios and venture capital funds are heavily exposed to the sector. On the other hand, regulatory and social ecosystems could also limit AI's future growth. Various entities, including the European Union and U.S. authorities, are working on regulatory frameworks that could impose restrictions on data use, privacy, or copyright. A clear example is the lawsuit filed by Disney and Universal against the generative image AI platform Midjourney. This is the first time major Hollywood studios have sued an AI company for copyright infringement, marking a legal turning point in the industry.
Isn't it interesting how it's those massive capitalists are coming together? This is the fracture within the bourgeoisie. Like, we always think that it's, it's the class relation is bourgeoisie versus worker, and it's just us versus them. But they fight amongst themselves all the time. Their interests are well aligned when they're fighting against the interests of the working people of the world. And they'll come down, or they'll come together pretty hard to fight against union movements and regulation and any type of safety issues and concerns around how they deliver products to us plebs. But that doesn't mean they're unified on everything. They definitely fight amongst themselves. And Disney and Co., Hollywood, etc., old media are a bit upset that they're not in on the AI race right now. They want to knock it down a few pegs. All right, if you're going to make all of this money generating all of this stuff, and it's going to threaten us, like this stuff, this generative AI does threaten traditional media. Like, you can go on, what is it? Prime, I believe, and you can generate television shows now. You type in what topic you want and it generates a TV show for you. Disney's fucked. Disney's completely fucked. If that is literally the future of this stuff, that 5-year-olds will type in what Disney movie they want to see and something will generate. And 1,000 kids will do it and one will be amazing. And then they all start watching that one. Disney's fucked. And so this is their chance now to duke this out in the courts. That's where the bourgeois figure their shit out. They're going to duke this one out in the court system, and they're going to try and get a cut out of this one, or protect their interests in it, so at least they can continue to get some type of a cut. All right, you're going to generate this stuff from now on. You give us some type of share in that, the profits that are going to come out of that. I just want AI to improve anime, visually. Yeah, fair enough. I just want simple stuff. Okay, I'm not asking for anything wild here. But that's how, I guess, normal people will use this technology to enhance their everyday experience, as opposed to these titans of industry coming at each other through the court system. It's pretty scary. Okay, yes, based on the provided context, there appears to be a distinct correlation phenomenon where increased speculation and interest in AI are helping to drive activity and speculation in cryptocurrencies. There are two links the two are linked through a powerful narrative: digital technological integration and investor sentiment. Here's a speculative breakdown of how these two factors are correlated based on the context. Dun, dun, dun. A New Zealand streamer was using AI to create a game entirely. Interesting. Very interesting. I saw a streamer, I didn't see them, but I just saw a clip of them. A Canadian streamer recently using EKG. They had brain monitoring gear set up while they were playing, and they were they're using thought commands. So instead of having to use a mouse or a keyboard or something like that, they're just watching the screen, and you can see them doing that one. They're just yes. And so their thoughts are turn left, turn right, engage, hit, I don't know, throw pokeball. And it's picking up on the instructions, and they're just thinking. So they're not even furiously hotkeying anymore. And right click. None of that shit. It's just coming straight out of the brain. Mental. The way that, streamers and stuff are going to be using AI now. So crazy. And that's the little stuff. That's how this kind of stuff will seep throughout the marketplace. Not through, apparently, the whims of Sam Altman. Apparently not. Okay, so a powerful shared narrative. AI and cryptocurrency are often seen as two pillars of a new technological frontier. This creates a powerful narrative that links them in investors' minds. When there is a surge of interest and hype in AI, a portion of that speculative energy can spill over into cryptocurrency, as they are both considered high risk, high reward plays on future technology. AI as a catalyst for crypto. The current AI boom is viewed by some as a catalyst for a golden age of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. The reasoning is that innovations in AI are expected to clear a path for the mainstream acceptance of crypto. This belief leads investors to speculate that the success of AI will inherently boost the value of the crypto. So there's a joint narrative, I think, is the good takeaway from this response here, is there is a joint aspiration for this tech to kind of change the world. Direct crossover in AI crypto projects. The most direct correlation is seen in the rise of cryptocurrencies specifically related to AI. An upswing in general interest in artificial intelligence has been directly linked to a soaring AI-related token prices. As the hype around AI grows, projects that merge AI with blockchain technology gain rapid traction, creating a new, highly speculative subsector. Would it be interesting, actually, if it's cryptocurrency that goes down first? There's a massive crash out in this orgy of people investing in cryptos. That crashes, the bottom falls out of that, and then that drags AI down. Then you know you've got a real asset correlation phenomenon going on there. The most direct correlation is seen in the rise of cryptocurrencies specifically related to AI. Sorry, I just read that one. Functional synergies that fuel speculation. The link isn't purely hype. Cryptocurrency companies are actively adopting AI for practical purposes, such as monitoring suspicious transactions, ensuring regulatory compliance, and protecting users from fraud. This real-world integration reinforces the narrative that the two technologies are synergistic, giving more credibility to speculative investments in projects that combine them. Interesting. Trying to persuade us in allying with these clankers. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. And yeah, there's a lot of speculation in both of them, isn't there? Heaps of speculation. When every big dog rug pulls the entire crypto industry and crashes out. Yeah, and like, wouldn't it be interesting then if it took AI with it? That'd be crazy. Because they're the same people, they're probably cross-pollinating both industries. They're like this speculation there. They're probably the same people that are fully invested in both of these things. Like, look at Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel, one of his first endeavors was not the AI of Palantir that's going to serve the entirety of the American deep state for the next 100 years. His first foray into tech was to set up PayPal with Elon Musk, because they wanted to have a libertarian vision of currency. They wanted the state out of currency. So these tech bros that are in AI are all over crypto. So one goes down, they both go down. I think you could see, yeah, from the correlation just between the venture capitalists involved, right?
Disney and NBC Universal, which is CNBC's parent company, are filing a joint suit against AI company Midjourney, alleging copyright infringement.
Skepticism is another factor, as about 55% of Americans believe AI will be just one more technology among many, without a decisive impact. Restrictive regulation combined with a decline in public and consumer enthusiasm could trigger a sharp shift in market perception. At the same time, the amount of money being invested, with projections estimating up to $7 trillion by 2030, raises questions about the sustainable return on that investment. As with the dot-com era, it is possible that many AI companies will not survive the current speculative cycle. Some will be acquired, others will disappear, and only a few will emerge as sustainable leaders.
This is the laws of coercive competition. Just a way to avoid tax. Yeah, what cryptocurrencies? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Literally, invest in this digital asset that can't be, tampered with, already can be put anywhere. Invest in that. And you don't have any income? Don't have any tax, don't have any assets in the country, can't be taxed on those either. So go for yourself. And you can just turn it into real cash somewhere else in the supply chain of global economics whenever you feel like it. Very interesting. Well. I wonder if there's any comments on this. Corporations are salivating at the prospect of laying off as many employees as possible. That's so good. This is like the working class expressing itself without understanding that it's expressing itself, right? People just feel this innately, and they don't even know that they're standing up for their own working class interests when they write this sort of stuff. Not just corporations, all businesses are. Labor costs are expensive. See, we cost money, but if you can completely automate us, then the business knows, capital knows what to do with labor. It's figure out a way to get rid of it to save money. They get tax breaks because they are job creators. Oh my God, this is savage. Fire everyone, keep the CEO. Unlucky most CEOs do not know how to sign on computer, so hire one assistant. That's fucking hilarious. Labor costs are why revenue exists. You slash one, you slash both. This is the most Marxist commentary I have ever seen in my life, and I bet you these people have absolutely no idea what they're like, wouldn't be able to articulate what their class interests are, but it's just screaming of class interests, right? CEO doesn't know how software works, so hires a team of devs. Wait, isn't that exciting? Only makes sense. You enjoy a capitalist system. Companies were never meant to give away money. Have an employee that can easily be replaced by a computer is stupid and a waste of your money. If you want to give away money, just do that. I, for one, will be glad to see any slackers let go. Anyone worth a damn will be repositioned. Interesting. And it's not the ones with the highest likes, is it? Either. All the ones that class conscious way up there with the likes. But maybe this is just some type of evil left-wing channel, economy media. Liberal propaganda. Racing to make products for people that can't afford them because of no job. Hilarious. So good. What an astute observation that was. The elite donor class resent human capital. So good. Oh, Clippy's in there. Yeah, Clippy. Okay. Then you also don't want to make money either, because employees, spoiler, are also customers. No customers, no money. Hello. Hello. That's fucking great. What an insight into the psyche of the working people of the world right there. I have a few colleagues. I wouldn't mind replacing with AI. Oh man, I should read those comments before I read them out loud. That one caught me off guard. Very good. I think we've all been there, right? Can't we just automate this douchebag? Like, do we really have to deal with him? Come on now. I don't want to deal with this guy anymore. Have you heard about the 2003 Silicon Valley bank crash? Yes. That was another 2008, but completely bailed out and swept under the rug. Yes, look, I have heard about this, and I think it's a pretty good thing, actually, to let's have a chat about, because I haven't really looked into it, but I remember hearing about it, so yeah. What was the 2003 Silicon Valley bank crash? Yeah, from my very basic understanding of it is they were setting up their own organizations, their own financial institutions to fund their own operations, and it kind of crashed out. So it was localized, like massively localized. And it would just showed, like, I guess, how fragile their system is at the end of the day, because they really back themselves, because they've got so much fucking money. There's so much capital. And they're just like typical upstart venture capitalist tech bro style, because they were self-made billionaires. They think whatever they touch turns to fucking gold. And so like they bet it all on red, and it didn't come off that great. SBF's girlfriend was a Harmail. Who's SBF? And who's the tar mail? I don't know all this cryptic language here. Come on, hit me up, please. Hit me up. Based on the prior article, there's no information about a Silicon Valley Bank crash. The contents mentions several unrelated events from 2003. What? The information you may be looking for concerns the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank that occurred in March 2023. Using my own knowledge, the 2003 collapse of Silicon Valley Bank was the third largest bank failure in US history. Isn't that mental? Eh? It was triggered by a classic bank run after the bank announced that it had sold a portfolio of bonds at a significant loss to shore up its balance sheet. This eroded confidence among its clients, many of whom were tech startups and venture capital firms, leading to them to withdraw funds en masse. The bank could not meet the withdrawal demands, which led to the failure and the seizure by US regulators. Yeah, I wonder who was behind it as well. Who were the people that were behind the Silicon Valley Bank? Were they venture capitalists themselves? Would you like to know more? Look up Caroline Ellison. Former CEO of Alameda Research and was convicted of fraud relating to the collapse of the cryptocurrency exchange FTX. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison in September 2024 for her role in the scandal. And convicted felon. Snap. When do white-collar people go down for their crimes? She gets 3 months taken off the 2-year sentence, apparently. Total smoke show. What does smoke show mean in American vernacular? I would like to know more. Actually, I'm gonna look it up. Slang term used to describe someone who's very attractive, sexually appealing. Savage, bro. Fucking savage. I should have seen that coming. Who's Sam Bankman? Sam Bankman-Fried, commonly known as SBF, is an American entrepreneur who was convicted of fraud and related crimes in November. Founded FTX cryptocurrency exchange and was celebrated as a poster boy for crypto, with FTX having global reach with more than 130 international affiliates. Sentenced to 25 years in jail. He was found guilty late last year of defrauding billions of dollars from customers on his cryptocurrency. It is a fucking Ponzi scheme, isn't it? It's like crazy. All the speculation in this stuff. SFB and FTX, part of the same crash. Interesting. Sorry, SVB and yeah, interesting. Hey, it's the Silicon Valley people, man. They're one of the same. AI and cryptos. It's both in their same wheelhouse, isn't it? They're all related. They're all related somehow. They're all together. Whoa, it's still searching? Or did it die? No, it died. Search 20 sites. Thought for 5 seconds. Okay. Poor thing. I'm really giving it a workout today. Poor guy. He's struggling. Poor guy. Oh, the ABC. Credible source. Here we go. From March 2024. The documents do explain the bank's relationship with venture capital community. SVB was founded in 1983 and for 40 years was known as the go-to bank of Silicon Valley tech companies, serving thousands of startups. While the context does not state whether the bank's leaders were venture capitalists themselves, it highlights a very close relationship. The panic that led to the bank's collapse was reportedly induced by the same venture capital community that the Silicon Valley Bank had served and nurtured. The bank run began after prominent Silicon Valley investors issued warnings causing customers to withdraw $42 billion in a single day. Yeah, right. Prominent Silicon Valley investors, eh? Dogs. Spreading rumors, crashing a bank. I wonder what's going on there. First time in history too, I'm sure. Sam Bankman-Fried was sentenced to 25-year jail for stealing US $8 billion from customers of the now bankrupt FTX exchange that he founded. District Judge Lewis Kaplan handed down the sentence in New York on Thursday, saying Bankman-Fried knew he was defrauding customers. He knew it was criminal. He regrets that he made a very bad bet about the likelihood of getting caught, but he is not going to admit a thing, as is his right, Judge Kaplan said. A jury found the 32-year-old Bankman-Fried guilty in November on 7 fraud and conspiracy counts stemming from the FTX's 2022 collapse. Prosecutors have described the fraud as one of the biggest in U.S. history and seeking a prison sentence between 40 and 50 years. He's vowed to appeal his conviction and sentence. During the hearing, Bankman-Fried apologized for not having acknowledged the pain caused to FXT customers during the previous court proceedings. Customers have been suffering. I didn't at all mean to minimize that, he said. I also think that that's something that was missing from what I've said over the course of this process, and I'm sorry for that. Several FTX customers had written to Judge Kaplan expressing dismay that they would be compensated based on the value of the cryptocurrency at the time of FTX's bankruptcy rather than the higher levels at which those assets currently trade. Bankman-Fried has been held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn since August 2023, when Judge Kaplan revoked his bail after finding he was likely tampered with witnesses at least twice. He's from MIT. No way. He rode a boom in the values of Bitcoin and other digital assets to a net worth of $26 billion, according to Forbes magazine, before he turned 30. He became known for his mop of unkempt curly hair and commitment to a movement known as effective altruism, which encourages talented young people to focus on earning money and giving it away to worthy causes. Damn. He was one of the biggest contributors to Democratic candidates and causes ahead of the 2022 US midterms. Prosecutors say the responsible image he cultivated concealed his years-long embezzlement of customer funds. Wow. That's mental, isn't it? This is the upstart, bourgeoisie, 21st century. Make a quick buck, and then get straight into philanthropy and politics. Crazy. Cryptocurrencies, man. Gotta watch out. Watch out for the cryptos. Coming to get ya. Crypto night. All right, so there is something else that I wanted to watch. And it's completely unrelated. Unless anyone else has got any other things about the AI bubble that they want to get down with. I do want to change subjects now because I think this is relevant to what we were speaking about last week. Massively relevant, actually. Let me just find it. Yes, here it is. Here it is.
President Trump says the next target for his...
Yeah, hear this. Okay, so here's the title for it, just so you can see that. Trump takeover. Chicago and New York City will be next crime crackdown targets. Whoa. Hello? Hello? Are you hearing this? So what we have is now a situation that we've been speaking about largely last week. Looking like not going to Anthropic was a good call. Who was going to Anthropic? Who? Were you potentially going to Anthropic? Damn, what do you do for a living? You are an intriguing individual. If it's you're talking about here. Yeah, well, Anthropic is in hot water at the moment, aren't they? Massive hot water. Is they getting sued? Eh? Yeah, I was poached earlier this year. Mental? Bro, you are an enigma, Jack. Eh? You have to take your thoughts on the AI bubble very, very seriously. Seem to be an industry expert. Getting poached by Anthropic. Have you ever met Dario before? What's he like? I'd like to know more. He seems very bumbly. You know, kind of like a LOL hardly. It would have been funny though if you said yes. All right. We are shifting gears here. Now we're going to start talking about, so last week we were speaking specifically, last couple of weeks actually, we've been speaking specifically about this idea of marching troops into a CC. Oh, you got censored? No, let me have a look. Did you see the supposed news that Trumpers has congestive heart failed and chronic No. I've heard people speculating a lot though about, that's so funny you say Trumpers and you still get censored anyway. I've seen speculation about his health not being good because apparently when he was walking down the red carpet with Putin, he was like not walking in a straight line properly, and I've heard that he's got some issue with his leg. I don't know. But like it was all localized to just being his leg. But it'd be interesting because like a big platform for him was the fact that he was of health and Biden was, a mess from a cognitive perspective. Absolutely useless. Hey, right? Joe Biden. Hey. And now Trump is suffering the same fate, right? He's only a year or two younger than Biden anyway, and they're both, barely competent when it comes to their short-term memory anyway. And Trump seems to be rather compromised at the moment, but that's interesting. Congestive heart failure and chronic kidney disease. Must be all that Maccas in the private jets cashing up with you after a while, I guess. And walking naked through the desert like depicted in South Park. It'll do its work on you after a while. That's for sure. Very interesting. Well, I guess we're going to have to keep our eye on that one. You know who's next in line then, eh? Baby Vance is just about to find himself as the emperor of world capitalism. What a scary, scary world that's going to be, right? 40-year-old president. You ready for that? Eh? That's scary. 40-year-old President Vance, Baby Vance, basically the hand of the king for Peter Thiel in the White House. Wonder what's going to happen then. All right. So let us change gears now. And we're going to just catch up on some related news because we've done this topic quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. And the topic is, look, Trump has called in the National Guard on Washington. Sleeping is for rich people. I'm back, baby. Hey, there we go. In fact, that was a quick nap. It's probably been like an hour and a bit since we've seen you. But welcome, Jerry Poppins. Welcome back. We're about to get into some crazy speculative territory here. But yes, as we've been discussing over the last couple of weeks, Donald Trump moved in the National Guard into Washington, D.C. Now, he moved in the National Guard into LA to deal with the ICE riots, as they were called. Some would just call it civil disobedience, people taking action against the ICE agents that were invading the city, which is a sanctuary city, coming in and just picking people off the street and disrupting the community. And so they were protesting against that, and it turned a little bit aggressive at certain points while being largely quite calm and peaceful, and Trump used that as a pretext to send in the National Guard. So this was happening a few months ago now, and now he's moved in troops, obviously, into Washington, D.C. As we've seen, he started off with like 800 troops, and now there's a couple thousand in there in Washington, D.C. Now, the special circumstances, obviously, with Washington, D.C. is that there is no, it's not a state, it's a district, and so there's no governor there. Now, when it came to L.A., he went straight over the top of the Democratic governor, Gavin Newsom, and said, I'm sending in the National Guard, which is not the usual decorum. As I understand it, you are supposed to wait for a governor to be like, hey, I need a hand, and let's send in the National Guard, and they make a call. But Trump, as the commander-in-chief, the president of imperial capitalism, he can send in the National Guard if he wants to, but it's kind of an area you don't want to go in terms of political football. It's a hard call to make, but Trump obviously doesn't shy away from those situations at all. And so he sent in the National Guard to LA without the backing and the acceptance of the governor. But in Washington, different scenario, because there is no governor there. Basically, you have the local government, so you have a mayor, and then you have the president who can actually make calls on Washington. So he marched the troops into Washington. And now, historically, when people march troops on their capital, it does look pretty much like the writing is on the wall. This is the steps that you take before some type of actual military coup, right? Before somebody seizes power, they send in the troops. Now, originally, the people, the National Guard that were being sent to Washington were kind of just like patrolling the streets, hanging out at nice monuments, taking selfies with people in the public. And so, they're just showing their presence, obviously assisting with the ICE raids, and they're assisting with issues with criminal behavior, because that was the premise that Trump had. And now Trump has made a call and said, no, they're going to have weapons. Or Pete Hegseth has done so on Trump's behalf, and has recently announced, I think in the last day or 24 hours, that the National Guard that are in Washington, D.C. are going to have firearms from now on. So not only are they just patrolling around, making their presence known, they're actually going to have, assault rifles or weapons, and they're going to be patrolling the streets. So this is a very overt, if you were looking at this completely objectively, and you were visiting America, and you went to Washington, D.C., and you knew that was the political capital of that system, you would have to believe that you were in some type of authoritarian style situation, as opposed to being in a liberal, democratic, and free society. You would think, hey, I must be in some place that has an authoritarian ruler, that has the military deployed on the streets, just pacing up and down and keeping public order. Because it's definitely not a war zone, and there's no natural disaster or anything of that nature. So it's just, you use the military to keep the peace on home soil. It's a very strange situation to expect from the leaders of the free world. Now, the interesting thing, obviously, about that whole situation with DC is that this is the first time a president has used a premise like this to march troops on the Capitol, as opposed to just any type of major city. We're talking about marching troops or the National Guard on the Capitol. The pretense was crime. Now, there has been instances in history, as we researched, where this has happened before. During after the assassination of Martin Luther King, there were riots in the Capitol. There have been riots within the Capitol for other circumstances twice in modern history or after World War II. And they've had to send in the National Guard to calm things down. So it's not like this is the first time ever the National Guard has walked into Washington, D.C. Don't let the liberal media tell you that and like kind of explain things from that scenario. But this is the first time such a pretext has been used, as in there's too much crime in Washington, D.C. Now, the liberal media will be the first to tell you that crime has actually gone down 29% in the last few years in Washington. So crime rates are down, but Trump is saying, no, there's a crime wave, and so I have to send in the troops. He's also actually basically cleaning up the city in terms of its homeless population as well, and they're rounding up homeless people and I guess putting them into buses and sending them to other cities, which is a thing that happens in America. They kind of play ping pong between major cities and just send homeless people around in buses, and they get off and then they get scooped up by somebody else's local law enforcement and then put onto buses and sent somewhere else, and they just go around the circuit basically on buses. Now, Trump is using that as a pretext as well to kind of march the National Guard in. But this is very irregular. So sending troops in without there being, again, a natural disaster, some type of civil unrest situation, or some type of infrastructure catastrophe where you need soldiers in there, like engineers, digging holes and like building bridges and things like that. This is unprecedented, sending people in, whether you like the idea or not, fixing up crime with soldiers, and soon to be soldiers that are heavily armed as well. This is uncharted territory for America, the land of the free. This is very, very dystopian looking stuff if you think of it from a historical perspective of this nature. Now, Trump has just made the announcement very, very recently that he is going to do the same thing in Chicago, and he's investigating potentially doing this in New York. Now, from our discussions on this stream, from our New York resident, Jack has confirmed the National Guard's already there. They've been sent in already by the governor. And so I don't know how much more National Guard people you can get in there, but maybe Trump will take control of them. But turning them on Chicago is going to be done under the same pretext. Again, this is because there is a crime wave. There is some type of situation that is out of control under the opinion of the President of the United States, and this situation can only be helped and aided by having National Guard presence in there, and that presence being directed by the president. So not being left to the governors of these states to send in the National Guard to regulate their major cities. No, the president's decided, hey, I'm upset with the level of crime that's happening in these areas, and I'm going to do this. Now, obviously, you can make an argument to support that. You can say, look, there is crime, and obviously nothing's happening, so we need a bit more of a presence to fix that. But like having soldiers on the street doesn't particularly deal with crime immediately. It will show some force on the street, and people might move somewhere else or reconsider their criminal behavior at that point in time, but it doesn't get to the root of the issue exactly, and it will take months to be able to understand whether or not just having troops around will have any impact on crime levels. Because again, if people feel like they can't just do the crime on the street, then they will go somewhere else and do it, or they will go underground and do that. So it depends how they are measuring whether or not crime has decreased as a result of this, and only months of this type of activity will be able to actually give you some indication of whether this is working. Now think about that. If Trump starts deciding to release the National Guard into major cities all around the United States, and it takes months to get an accurate picture of whether that's working, and you have major cities, the places where civil unrest happens. Civil unrest doesn't usually happen in the suburbs or in rural areas. It can, don't get me wrong, but it usually happens where there are concentrations of people living on top of one another. And so these are the areas where if people were going to be upset with the president or the administration, they would start showing all of that and that civil disobedience within these these centers. And so if you were planning for the future, that you knew you were going to implement something that was going to be generally unpopular and would result in a moment where all these people rise up, like let's consider the BLM protests that were happening a few years ago, and people were rioting and pissed off, demonstrating, protesting, whatever you want to call it, in cities all across the country and all across the world too, actually, but particularly obviously in the United States. This is how you would stop that stuff from happening in the future. You just have the National Guard in each city of potential concern. You have them there for months, so they're integrated into the system. Their presence has been normalized, and they're set up and ready to go. They're set up and they're ready for action, if you know what I mean. And so you have them there for a few months. It's not like you just drive them in to deal with it. That'll really inflame the situation. But if they're already there, then you can use them more effectively and quell dissent. So if you're looking at this from an angle of potential, this is an authoritarian takeover style move, this is really as explicit as you get, starting to take over major cities, the heart of civil disobedience and unrest within a democratic society or a free society where people are able to technically go onto the streets and public places to express their political satisfaction or dissatisfaction with the system. You preemptively march troops in to mitigate that when that happens. And people were speculating a couple of weeks ago when he did it in DC. People were speculating a few months ago when he rolled it out in LA, and people were like, this is it. They've gone over the heads of the governor, and this is a dangerous precedent to be setting. And here we have just very recently him saying, look, Chicago's next. And these are the types of places that you want to get in order with a military presence, because they kickstart larger issues across a nation. So if you're going to control a population, you got to go straight for the big centers where people conglomerate and potentially are not ideologically aligned with your administration and your regime. This is a very, very interesting development. This is like watching in real time the unfolding of the end of a ostensibly free society, because you've got troops, and these troops soon will be armed and they will be patrolling the streets. You expect to see that when you go to, I don't know, South America or something like that, or somewhere in Africa, somewhere where it's a developing country, and there's some, I don't know, local warlord that's in charge of the area. You don't expect to see that in a developed or a Western nation that supposedly pride themselves on being liberal and being free. So this is crazy shit. So let's have a listen to this Fox News live clip. I've tried to go to the right source here. I don't want to get exactly a liberal kind of analysis on this one. I want to see what is actually being said about this from people that are considering this from a standpoint where they probably align more closely with Trump than anyone else. Abalaba, no, Jag in the stream chat. What have you got there? About 750 National Guard soldiers have been deployed in the city's subway system since March 2024. Trump sent troops into DC to address crime. The troops into DC to address crime. Did it first in New York City. Okay, that's the article. Okay, I'll have to check that out. because you have mentioned this before, that this has been going on anyway in New York. Okay, so where did that? I mean, service members have an obligation to refuse unlawful orders. Just obeying orders is not an acceptable excuse. Don't trust any of those clowns. That's a very interesting point. And that's kind of like what happened in Nuremberg trials, right? As well, like it wasn't an excuse saying that I was just following orders. There was obviously, you have to kind of use some discretion, and which is the argument that we always have, Jack. I do believe that service members of any ilk, whether they're, troops or cops or whatever, at one point they should make a decision and use their own discretion, their own autonomy to not follow an order if they think that, yes, it's unlawful, or even better, unethical, if they don't feel like they should be crushing their own fellow citizens just because they've been ordered to do so. Let me catch up by guessing what the chat is talking about. I assume troops are kind of trained to follow orders. Yes, they are, but they're also not robots, and they should have human emotions. I'm assuming they have human emotions, and then they should be able to use those human feelings and hopefully empathize with the people they are crushing and not follow orders. That's where you get your revolutionary breaks in history, to a certain extent anyway. Law enforcement can also take a decision at their discretion, and you get good and bad cops in a mix. Yeah, that's true. Some bad apples in the big apple. All right, let's have a look at a Fox interpretation of this event, shall we?
President Trump says the next target for his crackdown on crime and illegal immigration is the city of Chicago.
Jag. Good cop, LOL. That's funny. I get it. I see what you did there. Still in speculation land there, Squeeb. Still fictional in this conversation.
From the Oval Office, Trump praised the National Guard's efforts in D.C., saying that crime is way. President Trump says the next target for his crackdown on crime and illegal immigration is the city of Chicago. Speaking from the Oval Office, Trump praised the National Guard's efforts in D.C., saying that crime is way down due to the success. He explained that Chicago comes next, then New York City. Take a listen.
Crazy.
So, I really am honored that the National Guard has done such an incredible job working with the police. And we haven't had to bring in the regular military, which we're willing to do. We have to. And after we do this, we'll go to another location and we'll make it safe also. We're going to make our country very safe. We're going to make our cities very, very safe. Chicago's a mess. You have an incompetent mayor, grossly incompetent. And we'll straighten that one out probably next. That'll be our next one after this. And it won't even be tough. And the people in Chicago, Mr. Vice President, are screaming for us to come. They're wearing red hats, just like this one. But they're wearing red hats. African-American ladies, beautiful ladies, are saying, please, President Trump, come to Chicago. Please.
Beautiful ladies. They love me. And they're calling me, please come to Chicago. I love it. He's rhetoric. Oh my God.
I did great with the black vote, as you know, and they want something to happen. So I think Chicago will be our next, and then we'll help with New York.
Without the tie on, Jack, he does look very old there. He looks old and tired. There's some to your theory right there. He's looking old.
And this right here is some of the video of the National Guard's involvement in Washington, D.C. The Pentagon confirming those troops will now be armed with guns as they patrol the streets of the nation's capital. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth calling it, quote, common sense. And we do have this post right here.
Common sense.
That'll want to pop up as he said that on social media hours ago, along with an article that said Secretary of Defense Hegseth authorizes National Guard troops to carry arms in D.C. Now, nearly 2,000 National Guard members are currently stationed in D.C. as President Trump continues that crackdown on crime. Trump warning that, quote,
I think the crime he's talking about are his own and his associates. He gave them the green light to white collar crime, and that's all he can tolerate. That's right. You can't send the troops in to battle white-collar crime, can you? Eh?
Bad things will happen if DC officials do not, quote, immediately stop giving false and highly inaccurate crime figures. There will be a, quote, complete and total federal takeover of the city. Want to pop this up on your screen right here as we do have more developments. The Pentagon confirming to Fox News that up to 1,700 National Guard troops will mobilize in 19 states in the coming weeks to help with the president's crime and immigration plans. Here is a look at those 19 states on your screen, and as you can see, they are scattered all over.
Look at all these places that are on the list. Alabama, Arkansas, done my research, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa. And so, like, what are these? Like, and like, someone help me out, please. I'm assuming Alabama, red state, Arkansas, red state, Florida, red state, or like it flips. Georgia, red, Idaho, blue, Indiana, blue, Iowa, blue, Louisiana, red, Nebraska, red, Nevada, red, New Mexico, red. So it's like a mix of red and blue here, I'm assuming. South Carolina, red. South Dakota, blue. Tennessee, have no idea. Texas, red. Utah, red. Virginia, Wyoming. This is mostly red. A few purple. And purple is like what? Like a red and blue flippy kind of state. So we're getting the National Guard in there to help crime everywhere. So they say, eh? To ensure that there's the optics of this look like swing states, right? Okay, yeah. The pretty ladies need his help. Sometimes you got to grab them by the ear and take them to safety. There it is. Eh? Very good, very good. Avalava. He gave the green light to white-collar crime. That's all he can tolerate. Otherwise, how else would his ilk remain competitive with China? Cooperation? Nah. Savagery. Yeah, that's what it's. You got to compete with China. Got to keep the business sector healthy so we can in the AI arms race and continue this new Cold War. Yeah, got to win the new Cold War. May not be these states as much, but just as he is invading somewhere, can't imagine what crime Mormons are up to in Utah. Yeah, I know, right? It's interesting to say, yeah, we're going to deploy them everywhere kind of things, like the optics of it, right? You gotta make sure you're spreading the love out a bit. And they will be roaming the streets, taking selfies, right? Is there a DA for that shit? At the end of a gun? Is there a DA for that shit?
Over the map. All of this expected to run through mid-November, with Texas projected to have the most significant National Guard presence. As you can tell, there is so much to discuss here, so I do want to bring in an expert to help break it down. We do have Jeff Weninger, a retired police lieutenant and the founder and CEO of Law Enforcement Consultants. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today and help to break it all down.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And first off, I
love this guy's voice. I wish I could speak like that. Of course. It's so good. And it's not even a radio voice. It's just an interesting voice. Of course.
Break it all down.
Break it all down.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And first off, I do want to ask you overall, how unusual is it to see this level of military and law enforcement presence in a city like D.C. and what we could see happening in Chicago and New York City as well?
Well, it's not unprecedented. We've seen it in the past, but it's generally because of a specific event or civil unrest or some type of a natural disaster. I saw it back in Los Angeles in 1992 when we had the Rodney King riots. We saw it with Katrina in 2005. And, we saw it most recently in Los Angeles here this spring when we had the civil unrest. So it's not unprecedented. I guess really the question is, seeing the deployment of military personnel for the purpose of policing everyday crime trends. That's unprecedented.
Do you think we are going to see, as we see the National Guard deployed to places like Chicago and New York City, do you think we're going to see kind of a similar situation to what we've seen there in D.C.? Will it look pretty much the same?
Well, I think to the extent where when you flood an area with resources to address the crime, automatically the deterrent factor is going to reduce the crime. The key is, what is the long-term strategy to maintain a lower crime trends? That's the significant challenge for everything.
Can I say, this is really balanced reporting. I didn't get it. Like, I thought Fox was all slop, like was all hardcore right-wing conservative slop. But like, this is pretty balanced. Like, this guy's like, so what does this actually mean? And then now this guy's kind of talking about, well, look, you can bring troops in, I guess, but, you know, you actually have to find out what the problems that are causing the crime are. Like, it seems pretty balanced. I'm surprised. I see Skeen. Welcome along. Exactly. The decision was made long ago. Yeah.
Everything, and it's not a quick fix. When you're talking about crime, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So from a strategic standpoint, and developing objectives and strategies moving forward are going to be the key in being able to maintain lower crime trends.
And on that same note, I did want to ask you, when you have such a visible show of law enforcement and military there on the streets, we saw the video just moments ago, how does that kind of impact crime overall? Does it have a real impact as you look down the line when you see all of these folks out there? Do criminals look and say, whoa, I'm going to step back because I see everyone there?
Well, initially, in the area where the resources are being deployed, you're going to see an automatic, immediate reduction in crime. But there's key factors that we're not really going to know for a while what has occurred. Have we just displaced that crime? Are the criminals going elsewhere to commit the crime? And it's going to take a number of months to get the crime statistics to be able to determine if that's actually the case. And the reality is that we can...
See, it's funny that he says that, because I was looking at... he hasn't given the reason for crime yet, Mystery. I'm sure he's about to say those people chose to be poor and homeless. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. And they didn't pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Eh? Bastards. It was their choice. That's why you live in a free society, because you choose your economic predicament. That's for sure. They could have been billionaires. They didn't work hard enough. Now, what they're talking about here in terms of, like, it takes a while to get an understanding of what impact these measures have on crime. I was watching recently an ABC investigation on the cartels, and they were speaking about the impact that it's had on the border, right? The show of force, having the military right there at like these important crossings where usually the fentanyl gets into America from Mexico. And so what happens, like, they have these checkpoints. I didn't realize what the volume of traffic we're talking about here, but like America and Mexico do massive amounts of trade. And so there are thousands and thousands and thousands of vehicles a day crossing in and out of America and to go back and forth to Canada and to Mexico. And obviously you can't thoroughly check every single vehicle. So the fentanyl obviously comes through over and through vehicles. Now, what they have noticed is, since they've put the troops there and increased the border force a lot, is there has been a reduction in fentanyl that they have seen by the fact that they're picking up less of it in cars because there's more of a show of force. Now, the person that was the analyst anyway that they were talking to was just like, that doesn't actually mean there's less fentanyl coming into the country, because that's not the way they've reported it. Like, the reporting from the news, I think, just generally has been like, yes, since this border crackdown, we've seen less fentanyl coming into the country, so it's working. Having the troops there is working, and they can justify having this show of force. But like what this person was saying was like, the cartels weren't born yesterday. And so if it's hard to get fentanyl in because there's more troops around, they just figure out other ways then. They use their submarines and their boats. They dig tunnels underneath the roadways and into America. They have tunnels. They dig tunnels, like little like rat runs, like underneath the roads, and they pop up in other people's houses or in other places, or they go to areas that aren't patrolled and they go over that way. It's obviously inconvenient. It's much easier just to drive that shit over the border and hope for the best. But like, it doesn't really mean that there is actually a reduction in fentanyl. It's just a reduction in them picking it up. So it's interesting. You have to be careful how you frame statistics, because if they think that there is a reduction in fentanyl coming into the country because they're picking up less of it at the border, that may just mean that they're not as brazen by driving it over the border anymore. And same with this crime stuff. If they march the troops in, and so like people aren't shooting each other on the street anymore, or aren't drug dealing on the street anymore, or like kids aren't hanging out in local parks anymore, that doesn't mean that kids are going to stop hanging out. Like juveniles are going to stop being juveniles, and criminal organizations are going to stop because they can't be out in broad daylight anymore. There are other things there, and just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's still not there. And effectively, what happens if you can't see it? You can't really manage it properly because you don't know what's going on. So they may be just sweeping this problem under the rug by sending the troops in as opposed to addressing it, which is potentially worse, because then you don't know exactly where to go to look for it and how to fight it if it's being swept under the rug. And still happening, which is interesting to think about, right? I think there is a difference between broadcasting company Fox Network and Fox News Channel, even though they are owned by the same company. Well, it seems like it. It seems like a massive difference. This seems rather less ideological. Let's just say it like that. Ooh, that's a headline. That'll backfire. Wings of Cheese in the house. How we going? It's good to see you. It's good to see you. Martin Shkreli is the number one opium dealer in the USA. The war on drugs, quote unquote. The message isn't they choose to be poor. It's that they didn't wake up one day and decide to get a job, decide to first make money, their first million, right? That book from last week's pod about the military LA people were shipping vast quantities of drugs. I'm guessing those are the same people who report fentanyl captures. Interesting. Yeah, I wonder, right? It's okay if it's coming from ex-military personnel, though. That's fine, as long as it doesn't come from those dirty Mexicans and those fucking cartels. They're the worst. They're terrorists, remember? That's why they have been classified as such.
You can have a circumstance where criminals go underground, so to speak. But once the resources are gone, we're going to be right back where we were to begin with. So like I said, it's really about the long-term strategies and posturing law enforcement in a position where they can be successful in and of themselves without the actual buildup of the military personnel to assist them.
So resource local institutions better as opposed to sending in the military. I think that's what I'm hearing from this guy at the moment. That's pretty funny. So like they'll just disappear while the people are standing on the street, and then they'll come back afterwards.
What challenges, if any, could potentially arise when you do have multiple law enforcement entities operating in the same space, like what we see happening in D.C.? You've got the Metro Police as well as the National Guard.
Well, primarily you have questions of chain of command. Who do I report to? Who am I taking my orders from? But from an operational standpoint, it can be very challenging. From a logistics standpoint, you have to determine who has the authority to do what. You have multiple entities that don't have the same authority. And then you have to determine the training and experience and expertise of each entity in determining what is the best way to utilize them in accomplishing the goal. And then ultimately, it's about being effective with your communication, being able to communicate up and down the chain of command, where people understand what the strategies, the objectives, and the tactics that are going to be used to address these circumstances. Now, the key here is having specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely goals. And the measures of effectiveness over the time period after these deployments occur are really going to be the story that's going to be told. So for me personally, I'm holding judgment until some time passes to see how effective this actually is, because we don't want a short-term solution. We want a long-term solution.
And a bit of a difficult question. It's probably tough to answer, but you have people who are all for this. You have the people who are in charge and calling for the National Guard to be there in this crime crackdown, saying this is an example of restoring law and order. You have critics who say it's just too much. So as a former law enforcement officer there, retired, I want to get your take on how you go about separating the political narrative from what's actually happening there.
Well, really, you have to be sensitive to the fact that people within D.C. are going to have different experiences. You have a population of just over 700,000 people, but the vast majority of the crime occurs in about 10% of the population. Wards 7 and 8 overwhelmingly are the most violent areas of the city, which need to be most significantly addressed, where you have to be surgical and specific in how you're going to address the violent crime trends. Because if you don't do that, then you're not going to be effective. So the reality is that the people that live in that area, where there's about 73,000 people, just over 10% of the population, is going to have a very different experience with this increased deployment of personnel, because it's going to be their communities are going to be policed, versus people that live elsewhere. Their experience is going to be different, where they're going to see objectively things are cleaner. There appears to be less crime, because it's not always about law enforcement. Can't just focus on crime itself and reducing crime. People have to feel that they're safe as well. So you have a bifurcated responsibility. And it's important that everybody within the community there, all 700,000 people, not only are living in a more safer environment, but that they feel safer.
Wow. I just learned a lot just then. I just want to check that, because I've heard this speculation too. We're just listening to someone talk about how Trump has ordered the National Guard and the FBI into Washington, D.C. to help out with crime. Now, from this discussion, there seems to be 2 wards within the District of Columbia that have most of the violent crime. And I've heard allegations by people in the media that the FBI and the National Guard haven't actually been deployed to the areas within Washington, D.C. that actually have the higher crime levels. Can you verify if this allegation has any substance? Has anyone heard that dirty liberal slander that they're not actually sending the troops to the right places? I would like to actually know a bit more about that. The people guarding the border from drugs are the same people who ship them. Yeah, it's a scary reality, isn't it? Martin Shkreli is the dude that bought the 36 Chambers album from RZA with pharmacy money from Opium. Trump let that Silk Road dude go, LOL. Seems kind of hypocritical when you understand how many drugs were sold over Silk Road. Yeah, wow. Oh, did that just crash? Did it crash out? No, it's gave me something. Not possible to verify the allegation the National Guard and the FBI have been employed to areas within Washington, D.C. The documents confirm that President Trump deployed the National Guard and federal agencies, including the FBI, to Washington, D.C. to address crime. The deployment consisted of approximately 800 National Guard troops. However, the provided sources do not contain any information I'm going to ask it the same question again. Yeah, I've heard some allegations that they're not even, like, it's, you know, they're sending it out, like, and it looks good, like they're cleaning up certain areas and they're doing, you know, stops and helping ICE do raids and all that sort of stuff, but they're not actually going where there's any crime. It was his promise to the libertarians to pardon Mr. Ulbricht. Oh, we've talked about this before. I think you've brought this one up before, Jag. So the context, the city of most violent crime, according to one source, violent crime in Washington, D.C. is highest in Ward 8, which is the southwestern corner of the city. Another source analyzing also noted Ward 8 as registering the largest increase in murders. However, the provided documents do not contain any information about a specific order from Donald Trump to deploy National Guard in DC to address crime, nor do they specify any such forces were deployed. Therefore, it is not possible to compare deployment locations with high crime wards mentioned. Interesting. Very interesting.
All right, Jeff Wenninger, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and help discuss all this further with your expertise. Anything else you want to add? Anything we missed before I let you go here?
No, I just think that this is unprecedented times. We have a president that is not afraid to think outside the box and to implement strategies that are unique and things we haven't seen in the past. I just urge people to be patient and allow things to play out. And hopefully in the long run, we will see what it is we're trying to accomplish, a reduction in crime and safer cities for our people in these neighborhoods and people that work and live and play in these communities to be in. So that's what I'm hopeful and looking forward to.
All right, Jeff, thank you again for taking the time to join us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So there's your 2 points on the propaganda spectrum there. You can go with my long-range tinfoil hat stuff, which is like, this is how you justify slowly an authoritarian military kind of takeover. You bring it in gradually and you use it on false pretenses. And then you have this guy's kind of like, well, look, you know, this is thinking outside the square tactics here. Only time will tell if this is actually going to work, but this is the idea. Just allow authoritarianism to play out and see what happens. Yeah, well, it seems to be a little bit like, you know, like I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, you know, they want to do something about crime. They need time to see if this is an actual factor, if you can actually figure out whether or not this type of presence has any ramifications in terms of reducing crime within a certain neighborhood or a locality or what have you. But yeah, we just need time to allow authoritarianism to play out. But hey, you might like it. Hey, you might like it. Yeah, you can listen to the neo-reactionaries. Democracy's dead. You can't live up to the requirements needed of this post-productive, stagnated capitalistic society that we live in. We just need some authoritarian figure in there to manage and plan out the economy anymore. I'm sorry, now. We don't need these democratic institutions. We just need a benign dictator. Let's keep watering the plants with electrolytes and you see if the crops finally start to grow. All right. There's one other thing that I want to have a look on. I want to see if I can actually find a clip. 3 days ago. Is this the one where he talks about the National Guard? Alex Jones. It's an Alex Jones nightmare. I think this is the one.
They've already got the cops on the street that are not cops or that are the military. They've already got the National Guard on the street. They already have all your information in D.C. And now they just get to decide what is and isn't over the line. That should scare everybody. You're fucking nuts, dude. If this doesn't scare you, you're nuts. All of these things that Alex Jones, you know, and I've had Alex on, I like Alex, but all these things that Alex Jones was like worried about when I listened to him in the late 90s, early 2000s are coming to fruition. And he, you know, I don't know where he is on all of that stuff, but like, I know he's a big fan of Trump, but like, this is everything Alex Jones always talked about. Military in the street, the FEMA camp, the tech company that monitors everything, the surveillance. This is all of that. I mean, not to sound like a fucking nut. This is everything a crackhead. And I don't even mean a crackhead like crack, but a guy smoking weed in a room with a fucking black light. He'd be like, bro, there's going to be military in the street. They're going to put you in jail for fucking thoughts, man. If you just say them, bro. You're gonna be in.
This is true. This is true. This is all of us. All right. I know you're all fucking stoners. All right. Just like this guy. They're gonna put us into prison, man, for thinking things. This is true. This is what Alex Jones has been talking about for like a decade and a bit. It's coming true. They're marching troops into places, into free cities, sanctuary cities. They've thrown people into camps, and they've got fucking tech that monitors everything you do. These crazy right-wing conspirators were true. And like, this is the overlap between all conspiracy, right? This is happening, man.
Fucking thoughts, man. If you just say them, bro, you're gonna be in fucking jail. There's gonna be a fucking company that monitors everything you do, bro. Like, this is literally the wet dream of every conspiracy theorist that has ever lived, and it's happening now.
The troops are coming, man. The troops are coming for you. You got me? You got me too, brother. They just want moral daddy to tell them what to do. Isn't that the fucking truth? What did they say in Germany when the Gestapo was ramped up? Or even Italy, right? Hey, everyone just, you know, calm down. They're not coming for me yet. First, they came for the Mexicans. Then they came for the violent criminals. Then they came for the homeless. And then they came for ... You get to decide who that is. They will decide who that is, and you get to decide whether you react to it or not. Mr. E talks the most. Biggest stoner confirmed. Yeah, that's true, actually. That's really all I do for about 3 hours a day. So I'm just like, come on, man. Don't you see? They want to control us? Oh my God. Oh my God, what was in that, man? I've had too much. I'm going to lie down for a bit. All right. We're going to call it there. Thank you, everybody, for your interaction today. We've covered some interesting territory, but here we are. But I wanted to end off with, you know, a bit of speculation on, I can't believe he's marching. He's going to do it. I'm stoked. He's done it in DC, and now Trump has decided he's going to march into Chicago. That is the next city on the list. He's made the announcement. Crime is a problem in Chicago, and he's coming to solve it. Next, New York, and then who's after that? Only time will tell, ladies and gentlemen. Love, Jeff. I hope you've enjoyed lurking. Cheese Twist too. David, I'm sure you have as well. Thanks for your interactions. Voltateur, it's been lovely. Squeeb, on fire today, as always. Jag, thanks for your commentary. Jerry Poppins in and out today. Usual style. Loves a bit of quick in and out. Anyone else that I've missed? I don't think I've missed anyone else. Oh, Icy Skeen in the house. Wings of Cheese coming in late there. Thanks for joining. And Avalava keeping Discord nice and safe and sound today. So thank you, everybody. And we will be back on Wednesday. I'm not able to do a stream tomorrow, so we're going to be back Wednesday, and yeah, with another YouTube stream, and then we'll just continue throughout the week, etc., etc. So tomorrow, no stream, and then we're picking it back in 2 days' time on YouTube. I'm going to try and get my tech resolved tomorrow, because I really want to try and get a stream situation happening where I can stream to multiple accounts. I failed over the weekend. I was supposed to figure out how to restream using some open source software, and I miserably failed. I just couldn't get it working. So yeah, we will be back on Wednesday, hopefully streaming to multiple locations for your optimal viewing experience, but we will see. Until then, please remember, I am, you are, we are mystery. See you on Wednesday. Cheers.